The story started as a man named von Fluklid, also the king of the first continent and a notorious criminal. He said that his grandson is likely to become a rare villain, and all the 4 continents will perish by his hands. That's why von Fluklid killed his grandson in his past lives, but it was impossible to change the predestined fate. Fluklid experienced countless failures and saw the destruction of the world every time, with only despair remaining in the 4 continents. That's why Fluklid decided to become more cruel, but in the end, he embraced hope the day his grandson was born, and couldn't kill him. The name of this little boy is Cain von Euclid. He's our protagonist and we shall call him Cain. Fluklid called out his cute grandson and he replied, "Yes, grandfather." He then told Cain to follow him. As they were leaving, von Fluklid told Cain that if they can't change fate, then he will make Cain strong enough so that whatever fate comes his way won't be able to affect him. From then on, our MC went on a 13 years long journey with his grandfather. 13 years later, in the 4th continent, a land governed by strength, a huge man held a trembling woman hostage. His voice boomed as he demanded the swordsman hand over their goods, or he'd end her life. "Hurry up!" he barked. "Do you want to trade for this woman or not?" The woman, in tears, pleaded desperately. "Please save me. I have a child, please." Her voice cracked as she begged. Among the swordsmen, a female warrior turned to their lord and said that they can't let go of the goods at any cost. It's too important to the clan. Another swordsman standing behind them hesitated, but they could save her life if they just give the man what he wants. The lord was torn. Frustration lined his face as he shouted at the towering man. "Is it not shameful for a so-called warrior to take a woman hostage?" The huge man grinned. "Say what you want. It doesn't change the fact that her life depends on their decision." The woman broke into sobs, saying that her child just started walking the day before yesterday. She begged them to save her. The lord clenched his fists. "Damn it," he muttered, his mind racing. He's in a tight spot, and don't know what to do. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tension. "So, you're Kuragami Makoro, the Black Wolf Demon?" The huge man's expression twisted into a snarl. "Who's there?" From the shadows emerged a guy with a cold gaze. Turns out to be Cain, our grown MC. Cain said to the huge man, "So you have succumbed to evil." The huge man froze in confusion. What does he mean by that? Before he could finish, Cain stepped without hesitation, struck, and in an instant, both the hostage and the huge man fell to the ground, their severed heads rolling in the dust. The Lord of the Swordsmen erupted in rage. "Why? Why did you kill the hostage too? Who are you to do such a thing?" Cain didn't answer. Instead, he sprinted toward the group with deadly precision. In a blur, he slayed the swordsman standing behind the Lord. The warrior lord screamed in shock and charged at Cain. "How dare you attack my men?" the Lord yelled. He raised his blade, but Cain parried with an almost casual flick of his sword, sending the Lord flying backward. As the Lord crashed to the ground, he muttered, "Damn it, he've lost control. Now it's over for him." The female swordsman lunged at Cain, her weapon aimed straight for his throat. But Cain didn't flinch. As the blade approached, he spoke in an icy tone. The hostage was an accomplice of the demon, that's why he killed her. Her blade froze midair as his words sank in, and the battlefield was silent. The warrior lord stared at Cain, in disbelief as he asked, "What does he mean by an accomplice? She looks normal. She doesn't look like a demon." Cain crossed his arms and replied flatly, "Also the guy he killed, their fellow warrior? Yeah, he was an accomplice too." The lord's jaw dropped. "What the hell? That's impossible." Cain smirked and gestured toward the bodies. "If you don't believe me, check their pockets." Makoru, being part of the Kurumi demons, always carries proof of their allegiance. The warriors hesitated but eventually checked the 3 bodies. Sure enough, they found the unmistakable badge of the Kurumi demons. The Lord shook his head, stunned. He couldn't believe it. That warrior has been with them for years. How could he have been in cahoots with demons? The group bowed in gratitude to Cain, one of them saying, "Thank you for figuring this out for us." Cain waved them off. No need to thank him. He only did what anyone else would have done. The Lord stepped forward. But wait, how did he know they were Kurumi demons? How could he be so sure? Cain shrugged. It's not like he knew they were demons. He simply attacked evil. His blade never lies, it always strikes true against wickedness. In the next scene, the atmosphere shifted to a lively bar, where people from various tribes drank and celebrated. Cain's grandfather, von Fluklid, sat beside him sipping his drink and smirking. "You did well defeating evil and saving the good," Fluklid commended. With a serious look, Fluklid then asked, how was Cain so sure the hostage was an accomplice of the Kurumi demons? What if she had been innocent? Cain replied that she wasn't innocent, she was with the demons. On what basis, Fluklid asked. Cain tapped the pendant hanging around his neck. This pendant, the grandpa gave to him years ago. It revealed their true nature. They were cloaked in darkness. Fluklid let out a dry laugh. "Oh, the sacred ring. So it did tell you. Interesting." Cain raised an eyebrow. Wait a second. Isn't the sacred ring a divine artifact from the third continent? Grandpa, you didn't steal it, did you? Flucklid scoffed. Quiet. There was no other way to interfere with his fate, and yes, he borrowed it permanently. Cain grinned slyly. Did you borrow anything else? Maybe a piece of the celestial realm? Of course I did, Flucklid retorted. You think artifacts grow on trees? Cain laughed. So Grandpa's a legendary thief and a great warrior. Not bad. Flucklid shook his head. You talk too much. Be quiet before someone hears. Their banter ended with Flucklid's serious tone as he asked Cain to tell him if the ring truly shows him their darkness. Cain nodded. Yes. The 3 people he killed were entirely evil. So he followed his grandpa's teachings and acted without hesitation. Flucklid sighed. Then it seems Cain's heavenly killing star has broken free from fate's shackles. He said Cain shouldn't dwell on these things too much, or his head would explode. Flucklid told Cain that he has now inherited his looks and strength, after all. Cain snorted. Was that a compliment or an insult? Take it however you like, Flucklid said with a laugh. Later that night, as they prepared to rest, Flucklid called out, Cain Von, there's nothing left to bind you. Live freely. With a determined face, Cain replied that he'll do good for good and show endless malice for evil. The grandpa said that hearing those words reassures him. He's really glad. The next morning, Cain awoke to a letter on the table. As he read it, his grandfather's words echoed in his mind. He's sorry to say this, but their journey ends now. He told Cain to live a life unbound by fate. And remember, no matter what anyone says, you are not a villain. With a smile, Cain tucked the letter away and set out on his path. His first stop, a forest teeming with Kuromi demons. He wasted no time slaying them, cutting down foe after foe with ease. One demon with a tribal mark on his eye sneered, You're not bad, kid, but you insulted Kuromi. That's unforgivable. Before he could finish, Cain interrupted with a clean strike. You talk too much. As the battle raged on, Cain's sword broke mid-swing. He sighed. This sword didn't even last through 100 demons. 2 remaining demons charged at him, screaming, You bastard! Cain dispatched the first effortlessly, muttering, First come, first served. The second demon begged for his life. Wait, please let me explain. Cain wasn't in the mood. He silenced the demon with a punch that shattered his nose. Cain then grumbled that knocking people out without killing them is harder than it looks. The guy fell to the ground begging RMC. He told Cain that he's just a low-level Kuromi with no value. Cain said he's aware. The guy was like, Huh? How did he know? Turns out that our MC has a pendant that detects evil, and for this guy here, the pendant shines white, which means he's not evil. Cain then told the guy that he sees potential for his rehabilitation. He should repent in prison. With the battle over, Cain grabbed a new sword from the corpses and was about leaving when he noticed a bright figure on a nearby rooftop. It was someone he recognized, a sword master his grandfather once introduced him to. Cain then said he would leave the fate of this Kuromi to the master. The master observed Cain, impressed. So, this is the foreigner who slays Kuromi demons with a single stroke. He was eager to see who it was, but he's now more shocked by the fact that Cain could sense his presence from that distance. Is not an ordinary person indeed. But he wondered, why did he let one of the Kurumi go? It's as if Cain left the last person's fate to the man. But as he was looking, a lady walked up to him and called out, Master! She asked him, what is he doing here? But the master said, yeah, he has a place to go first, and sprinted away from the building. As he was sprinting, the girl said she will follow him too. And as they were running, just as the last guy was about escaping, they struck him with a stone on his head, adding to the pain Cain has caused him already. As they landed, the master said with a sigh that he almost let him escape. The disciple asked him, who is this person? And the master said, the guy is a Kurumi demon. Upon hearing this, the disciple became furious and the smile on her face changed. She pointed her sword to the Kuromi and said, he is still alive. Can she finish him off? The master declared, no, the Kuromi will be judged by the law at the government office. However, his disciple asked if it's necessary to go through such trouble. Why not kill him immediately? She believed immediate action was the best solution. The master replied calmly, someone specifically requested that he handle the Kuromi himself. The girl frowned in disbelief. What? Who could make such a request from such a distance? How did they even know her master was here? She was shocked, realizing that whoever it was must have detected the master's presence from an extraordinary range. Even the top disciples of the clan struggled to locate the master despite their best efforts. The only reason she could find him now is because she knows the places he occasionally visit. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to track him. The master smiled faintly. That child has good eyes. The disciple's surprise deepened. Child? Is her master saying it was a child who managed to accomplish this? Is he around her age? The master nodded. Yes, about the same age. At that moment they noticed a broken sword lying on the ground. The master chuckled dryly. It seems to be the sword the boy used to fight the Kuromi demons. The girl's eyes widened. For the sword to break, does that mean he didn't use internal energy to shield the blade? Then it clicked for her. She realized with amazement. Wait, he defeated the Kuromi demons without relying on internal energy. That means his physical skills and swordsmanship are superior to hers. Meanwhile, in the central continent, an autonomous region established to promote peace between all 4 continents, people from across the world gathered in harmony. The area was bustling with life, lined with specialties and famous goods from every corner of the world. Merchants eagerly advertised their businesses to the lively crowd. Amid this bustling scene, our MC strolled through the marketplace. Observing the overwhelming crowd, he muttered to himself with dry eyes, "There are too many people. Where's the train station?" As Kane wandered, a woman resembling a shaman approached him. She began to speak, but Kane interrupted. "I'm not interested." The shaman, undeterred, urged him not to say that. She told him that the person who'll read his future is the priestess from the second continent, the one who sees fate. Before Kane could respond, a silver-haired beast woman appeared and addressed the shaman. She'd like to meet someone who can tell her fortune. The shaman nodded. Of course. What would she like to predict? The silver-haired woman explained. She can see other people's fates, but she can't hers, so she's eager to find someone who can. Kane paused, observing the woman. He noticed her silver fox-like features and realized she was from the Silver Fox clan. Before he could think further, the woman turned to him and asked, "Does he find her ears and tail strange?" Kane started to apologize, but the woman waved it off with a smile. No need to apologize. She thought he might be interested in her. How about it? It must be fate that they met like this. Why don't they get their fortunes told together? He should not worry. She would pay for both of them. Kane, feeling awkward, declined. The woman sighed and said, "It's fine. She'll leave then." She walked away, and the shaman, now losing both potential customers, muttered in frustration, "Damn it, what a terrible day." As the silver-haired woman left, Neriel, her bodyguard, approached and suggested, "Should we deal with that guy for turning you down, princess?" The woman turns out to be a princess from the second continent and the real priestess who sees fate. She shook her head. "No, leave him be. She was the rude one." The princess remarked that it was fine if they ignored minor incidents. She confessed she was more intrigued by the guy from before. Upon hearing this, Neriel gasped and asked if the princess had fallen in love with the guy at first sight. The princess smiled and denied it, explaining there must have been a misunderstanding. That was not what she meant. Neriel apologized, but the princess continued, saying she was interested in our MC because she couldn't see anything about him. The princess elaborated, stating that she couldn't see anything about his fate, even with her abilities as a priestess of the oracle. She described it as if everything about him was a mystery. His presence was entirely flawless, colorless, odorless, and enigmatic. It was the first time in her life this had happened, and she couldn't help but feel compelled to speak with him. Neriel asked if they should investigate the guy further, but the princess refused, insisting it wasn't necessary. She reassured Neriel they would likely cross paths again. Surprised, Neriel pointed out that the princess had just mentioned she couldn't see his fate. However, the princess clarified that while she couldn't see his fate, she saw something else entirely. Oddly enough, their destinations aligned. When she looked at him, she was reminded of an old gentleman she had met by chance 10 years ago. That man had been none other than our MC's grandfather, the notorious villain. Neriel hesitantly asked if the man could be the villain who had stolen the first Beast King's treasure. The princess nodded, recalling how Flucklet had once told her that fate was something one must grasp for themselves. If she couldn't see anything, she needed to take action. For some reason, those words had stuck with her since then. That was why she unconsciously noticed the train tickets our MC held, confirming they would meet again at the same destination. Meanwhile, Kane, after getting on a train, reflected on the silver-haired woman he had encountered earlier, wondering if she was the priestess his grandfather had warned him about. Before Kane's departure, his grandfather had spoken cryptically about 3 stars influencing his fate, and one of them being a priestess of the Silver Fox clan. She was said to be destined to pierce his heart with a spear. Kane found it strange that the priestess, supposedly his enemy, had shown him kindness instead of hostility. He speculated that his fate might have shifted toward neutrality. If so, he wondered if other aspects of his destiny had also changed. His grandfather had warned him that more than 20 individuals were destined to kill him. Kane's journey was, in essence, a desperate attempt to twist those fates and survive. After some time, Kane arrived in Barakal, the capital of the central continent. He sought out a renowned blacksmith's establishment and was greeted by a female blacksmith. She inquired about his purpose, and Kane explained that he was searching for Kyle-sama. Startled, the blacksmith stammered, mentioning that Kyle-sama rarely entertained walk-ins. To meet him, one usually needed an appointment. Kane presented a box, stating that it was for Kyle-sama. When the blacksmith asked what was inside, Kane admitted he didn't know, only that his grandfather had forbidden him to open it. He assured her that if Kyle-sama still refused to meet him after seeing its contents, he would leave quietly. The blacksmith took the box to Kyle-sama, musing that Kane wasn't the arrogant customer she had initially thought. As she departed, a male clerk named Dean entered, chastising her for attending to annoying customers. He remarked that she was far too kind. However, Kane noticed the man's aura was black, marking him as evil. Din mocked Kane, calling him a pesky bastard, and suggesting he use money if he wanted to meet Kyle-sama. However, Kane kept his thoughts to himself and instead commented, "It's strange. A blacksmith clerk with a black aura like that? Someone like him deserves to be dealt with immediately." Din, noticing Kane's stare, suddenly turned his attention toward him. His face twisted in annoyance as he barked, "Pesky bastard! If you want to meet Kyle-sama, stop with these shabby tricks and use money. Become a VVIP, and he'll get a chance to meet him." Walking up to Kane, Din sneered and continued, "Not that someone like him could ever afford it." Kane, unbothered by Din's aggression, smiled faintly and replied, "Even if he had the money, he wouldn't have a reason to buy their weapons." Din's irritation grew, his voice rising. "What did you just say? Are you trying to act stubborn?" Kane shook his head. "Not stubborn, just stating a fact. There's no reason to buy a sword that can't even handle his strength." Din's expression darkened further. "Does he think their famous swords would break?" "Of course," Kane replied calmly. "Their sword would break in his hand." With a wicked grin, Din leaned closer. "Is that so?" He asked Kane to show him his strength. "He'll take responsibility." Kane tilted his head slightly, his voice turning sarcastic. "Can someone like you even take responsibility for anything?" This remark struck a nerve with Din. "What did you just say?" he shouted, his voice trembling with anger. While Din fumed, Kane's attention shifted to a nearby sword. Its flashy, eye-catching design stood out in the room. "Oh, there's a third-rate sword over there. Even someone like Din could probably take responsibility for that." Din growled, his fists clenching. "You bastard!" Kane ignored the outburst, walking up to the sword. He examined it briefly before smirking. "It's a replica," he declared. "It looks flashy on the outside, but it's just poor quality trash. A sword that suits the clerk perfectly." Din froze, his anger replaced by shock. "How did Kane know it's a replica just by looking at it?" he demanded. Kane didn't answer immediately. Instead, he swung the sword lightly, and with a loud bang, the blade shattered in midair. Din was stunned, his jaw dropping as he stared at the broken weapon. "What the hell just happened?" he stammered. "No matter how bad the replica is, how did this boy break it with a single swing?" As the commotion unfolded, a powerful voice cut through the room. "I haven't visited the store in a while, and it seems I've come at an interesting time." Everyone turned to see Kyle-sama, the blacksmith boss. Kyle's sharp gaze landed on the shattered remains of the sword. He directed his attention to Din. "Deputy Manager Din," Kyle began, "why is such garbage even placed in this sanctuary? Explain yourself." Din's confidence crumbled as panic set in. He told Kyle-sama that it wasn't his fault. He said it was Kane who suddenly destroyed the sword. Trying to shift the blame, he said that they should call the guards immediately. Kyle raised a hand, silencing him. "Shut up, Din," he commanded firmly. He didn't ask about Kane. He asked why such trash sword is here in the first place. Din trembled, unable to speak, as he stood there, deprived of words and water. He didn't know how to deny the accusations against him. Kyle-sama observed his reaction and calmly stated, "His reaction says it all. Now they understand why rumors about defects in their weapons are spreading. This incident cannot be overlooked." He then ordered 2 of his other blacksmiths to take Din away for punishment. As they dragged him out, Kyle-sama warned Din to be prepared. He would pay dearly for tarnishing the store's reputation. As Din was being taken away, he begged Kyle-sama to listen, but Kai dismissed him, calling him a trash. Dean muttered that their swords were subpar. He said that our MC had belittled Lord Kale's sword. Kane had said their swords couldn't withstand his strength, and even if he had the money, he wouldn't buy such third-rate weapons. Kai-sama glared at him, ordering him to be quiet. "I'll deal with you later," he added. Once Din was out of earshot, Kyle-sama turned to Kane and asked, "Everything that Din said just now, was it true?" He asked if Kane said all that about their swords. Our MC nodded. "Yes, it's true." Kyle-sama sighed. He had high hopes for Kane. When he brought this item from Flukelid, Kyle's old friend, he thought it would be something remarkable. He handed the stick back to Kane, which he had received as a present, and said, "Take it back. He'll pretend this never happened." Kane caught the stick and examined it, realizing it was what was inside the box his grandfather had given him. Suddenly, Kyle-sama presented Kane with a sword, a blade among the top 3 famous swords on display. "Take this. Leave my sight immediately," he instructed. Kane, however, looked at the sword with disdain. Kyle-sama, sensing his hesitation, asked, "Don't you like it?" He recalled Kane's earlier words about their swords not being worth buying and now asked, "What will you do? Will you pay for this sword with gold coins?" Kane took the sword but spoke up. Although his previous statement was insensitive, he understood if Kyle took it as an insult. But it's a misunderstanding. He unsheathed the sword and explained. He didn't mean to belittle their sword, he only spoke the truth. It's not just their sword, any famous sword can't withstand his strength. With a powerful swing, the sword shattered instantly. Kai-sama stared in shock. How surprising. The famous sword broke without mana being infused. It's unbelievable that a boy like him with just raw strength can put such pressure on the sword. A while later, both Kyle-sama and Kane sat down, and the old man apologized. He was wrong to insult the grandson of Fluklid. Kane, however, responded, "No, it's him who should apologize." He also said something rude. Deep down, Kane reflected on his actions, realizing that he needed to be more considerate. He's not good at understanding people's feelings, he thought to himself. Kai-sama then asked, "What's the reason Kane came to see him? Bringing a mistletoe branch suggests it's something important." Kane seemed surprised. "Oh, so that piece of wood was a mistletoe branch?" He didn't know. Kale-sama, intrigued, asked, "You brought such a rare item without knowing what it was?" Kane answered, "Yes, his grandfather told him never to open the box. By the way, is this branch really that valuable?" Kyle-sama nodded. "Valuable isn't the right word, it's a treasure among treasures. Anyone would call it divine." At the mention of the word divine, Kane muttered to himself, his grandfather must have stolen this. He then voiced aloud, "For a divine item, the mistletoe has a weak aura." Kyle-sama chuckled and said, "That's because it's not precious yet. But if he make weapons from this mistletoe branch, it can give any sword the qualities of a divine weapon." Kane, intrigued, asked if he will make a sword for him out of it. Kyle-sama was shocked and asked what he meant. Kane explained, "As you can see, he can't wield metal properly. Any famous sword he uses breaks before he can even swing it, but there's a reason for this." Kane revealed that 10 years ago, after consuming the treasure of the deep sea, an item his grandfather stole, his body became unable to handle metals. It's not just iron. Even materials like orichalcum and meteorite are destroyed when he touched them. All weapons are made of metal, so he's never had his own weapon. He always have to borrow one. Kyle-sama nodded slowly. "A destructive nature, he've heard of it. Sounds like the legendary beasts of the deep sea. If this is Kane's constitution, now he understands why Fluklid sent that mistletoe branch. A weapon made from it wouldn't be affected by Kane's condition." Kane stood up suddenly. "Does that mean he can finally have his own sword?" Kyle-sama smiled. "Yes, he can." Kane nodded eagerly. "Please, make me a sword." Kyle-sama reassured to trust in him. He'll have it ready soon. Kane then began to leave the Ironheart's building. As he walked away, he thought to himself, he almost gave up on having a weapon, but this might be the last gift from his grandfather. Suddenly, Kane noticed a commotion among the blacksmiths. They seemed frightened, murmuring that they needed to report something to their boss. As the lady moved to inform him, Kane approached her and asked, "What's going on?" They seemed serious. The girl was like, "Cultivator guest?" From her expression, Kane asked her if Din escaped by chance. Startled, the girl said yes. She promised they would capture him and bring him to justice. They begged Kane to forgive them for letting Din escape. Kane found the situation awkward. He thought, is it really necessary for them to apologize this much for letting Din escape? He recalled the girl calling him cultivator guest and realized that they had misunderstood him as a master from the fourth continent. Most masters from there were known for difficult personalities, which is why the clerks feared him. Among them, the only one with a normal personality was the sword god. Kane, aware of their misunderstanding, told them, "Lift your heads up." The clerks, relieved, thanked him for understanding, but before they could look up, Kane had already disappeared. Not far from the Ironheart's building, our MC was suddenly attacked by a group of notorious criminals. The leader of the gang ordered his warriors to kill Kane, dead or alive. Anyone who brings him down gets 3 ounces of gold. The criminals cheered, eager for the reward. As they continued yapping, Kane noticed their dark auras. These are evil people. He don't need a reason to slay them, he thought. With a swift movement, he began cutting through them, thinking to himself, they're all third-rate. However, his sword broke again during the battle. One of the criminals yelled, calling Kane an idiot for leaving his back wide open, but Kane quickly dodged the attack. Since he had no sword, he used his fists to strike back, delivering a barrage of punches. Then, Kane picked up an axe and launched it toward one of the criminals, shattering his skull as if it were a balloon. Now, turning to the remaining attackers, one of them asked the captain, "Who the hell is this guy?" The captain assured him not to be scared, stating that the opponent was alone and posed no threat to all of them. But before he could finish speaking, Kane knocked him down and raised his sword toward his leg. With a swift strike, Kane stabbed him in the chest, killing him instantly. The remaining attackers, about 3 in total, yelled, questioning how dare he kill their captain. But just as they were about to attack him, our MC spinned like a tornado and slayed them all at once. Only 2 attackers were left now. The first one, trembling, said he had been threatened. If he didn't help with the attack, they would have killed his family. Cain, as vicious as ever, slayed him in an instant. Then, he walked up to the last attacker. Before killing him, he said he would ask him one question, and if he answered honestly, he would spare his life. The man, crying, yelled that it was a lie. Cain would kill him anyway, no matter what he said. Our MC, however, gave an oath on his sword, a promise made by a swordsman to their blade. Breaking it would restrict the use of mana, and for a master, it could be fatal. Cain then swore on his sword that if the man answered honestly, he wouldn't harm him. The man, unsure but desperate, asked if Cain was truly serious. "All right," the man said. "What do you want to ask me?" Cain asked him who had sent them to attack. The man paused for a while, but after some silence, Cain grew impatient. He stabbed the man in the leg and demanded, "Will you answer my question?" The man yelled in pain and finally said, "It was Din. It was Din who sent them to attack Cain." Cain nodded as expected. "It's him," he muttered. "There's no one else." He then asked the man, "What is the root of this request?" The man replied that there was a large organization based in the capital, Barakal. Din had used his connections to get them involved. Cain muttered in disgust. "Trash, Din." He realized that this man had to be part of a criminal organization. It made sense now. Working fraud in the shop wasn't the level of black mana Din could pull off. Cain then asked, "Where is their base?" The man replied, "There's not just one. It's a huge organization with many branches. The headquarters, though, is at the resting place Leon. That's their main base of operations, and that's where the request came from." Cain processed the information. Resting place Lan. It's close from here. It reeked of an evil aura. He turned to the man. "Just to make sure, he's not lying, right?" The man swore that he wasn't lying, and Cain nodded. "All right, I believe you. It doesn't seem like he's lying." The man then said he would leave, but Cain stopped him. "No, I'll kill you." The man yelled, "Didn't he swear on his sword that he wouldn't kill him?" Cain responded coldly. "Unfortunately, the sword oath doesn't apply to him." The man's eyes widened in disbelief. "That's impossible. The sword oath applies to every swordsman." Cain smirked. "Not anymore. Since he ate the celestial peach his grandfather stole, the gift of mana disappeared from his body. The restrictions that bind mana no longer apply to him." The man, still in shock, said, "Wait, even so, breaking a warrior's promise of pride, it's not right." Cain nodded. "Yes, a warrior's pride is important, but there are exceptions. A promise made with a villain is not a promise." Cain swung his sword with a swift motion, decapitating the man. The man's head hit the ground with a sickening thud, and his sword shattered in the process. Afterward, Cain let out a sigh. He thought this sword would last for a while, but it didn't even last 10 swings, he muttered. As expected, he need a sword that won't break. In the resting Leon, Cain examined the environment. The building, from the outside, looked like a normal lodge. But that was only true for the lobby and the exterior. When anyone used the hidden passage inside and went to the basement, they found a place filled with notorious criminals. It was a hub where all kinds of dangerous individuals gathered. Inside the building, a group of criminals were gambling. They even humiliated a little boy by the side, treating him like a dog. One of them sneered and asked their fellow member, "Where did you get this little brat from?" He laughed and answered, "He grabbed him from some random place." Meanwhile, a man yelled in frustration, "Damn it!" It turned out to be Din, Ironheart's former deputy manager, who's on the run. He muttered angrily about the idiots he sent, who couldn't even handle Cain. More importantly, he looked up and saw a masked man. Had he known the man was coming, he wouldn't have left those bastards to handle our MC. He would have sent the masked guy to deal with Cain himself, Dean said, his frustration growing. The masked man was well known as a capable figure, even in Atla, the most notorious organization across the 4 continents. For him to be here, it meant that the boss had high expectations of Din. Din then asked the masked man if he was planning to make his move right away. The masked man responded coldly, "What do you mean, make a move?" Din asked, "Isn't he here to deal with Cain who disgraced him?" The masked man shook his head, explaining that the only orders he had were to retrieve something from Dean, nothing else. He was only told to get the information that Dim had on the Iron Heart, the masked man added, glancing at Dean. "Are you sure you don't have something more to report to the general boss?" Dean froze, a little scared. He wondered if, after giving the masked man the information he needed, the man would kill him. But as if reading his mind, the masked man assured him, "I wasn't ordered to dispose of you. You're safe, for now." The masked man was then handed a small card. He looked at it and said, "All right, you've received the item. He'll be leaving now." But Din wasn't done. "Wait," he called out. "If he's leaving, who's going to protect him while he's on the run?" Suddenly the masked man snapped, "Shut up, you fool." He asked if Din did not notice the sudden quiet in the building. Outside, something was definitely going on. Back in the gambling hall, the little boy, who had been humiliated, covered his eyes. "I've already counted to 20, he said. "Can I open my eyes now?" Kane, who seemed to have infiltrated the base, freed the little boy from his chains and gently told him, "Please keep your eyes closed for a little longer." Inside the building, Din and the masked man were both shocked by how Kane had managed to infiltrate their base. They prepared to attack him, but our MC ignored them. He turned his attention to the boy and said softly, "It's fine for him to sleep now. By the time he opens his eyes, he'll be in his mother's arms." Once the boy fell asleep, Kane turned to face Din, and as their eyes clashed, Din felt a chill run down his spine at the sight of Kane. The masked man looked at Din and asked if he knows him. Din nodded, his voice trembling. "Yes, it's him, the damn brat who disgraced him." The masked man chuckled. "Wow, this kid is something else. He's pretty impressive for his age. Was it really necessary for him to go this far by killing their colleagues?" "That's cruel." Kane smirked. "Cruel? How laughable," he said. "They wouldn't even understand the meaning of the word cruel. All he did was decapitate the man boasting about decapitating others. He tortured those who enjoyed tormenting others as hard as he could before killing them. Isn't that fair?" The masked man argued. "Since his opponents were weaklings, shouldn't he have shown mercy?" Kane's grin twisted into something darker. "Mercy? That's a word unfit for them." With that, he unsheathed his sword. "All he offer is endless malice." The masked man bristled and took a fighting stance. Kane's eyes narrowed. "What sin are you guilty of?" The masked man was taken aback, but before he could respond, Kane moved. In a flash, he lunged toward the masked man, slashing his neck. The sword pierced through midway before shattering. The masked man stood stunned, unable to sense Kane's presence at all. Kane then left the man growling in pain. Then, Kane walked toward Dean. As he walked, he told the masked man not to move. He had only managed to cut his neck halfway. If the man moved, he would only die struggling in pain. But it seemed like the man wouldn't last long, as he fell to the ground and died. With an evil grin, Kane told Dean that now it was just the two of them. Kane's presence alone made a grown man like Dean shed tears. As Kane tortured him, Dean yelled in pain, and anyone nearby could hear it from miles away. Back at the Iron Arts building, Kane laid the little child he had saved on a couch. He then told Kael-sama everything that had happened. Kael was surprised to hear that Dean was a member of Atla, the notorious organization. Then, Kane handed Kael the data chip that Din had intended to give to the organization. Kael observed it closely. "A data chip from the third continent, huh? Seems like an older model." Kane nodded. "He believes it's for security reasons. Since the model came out before mass production, it will be hard to find a tablet to retrieve information from it. Therefore, it will take time to uncover the information Dean stole from the workshop." Kael sighed. Now he can't even figure out what information the Atla organization is after, and it makes him restless. Kane told him to remain cautious for now, since they didn't know what the Atla organization was planning. Kael agreed. Yeah, he'll definitely be cautious. After all, he won't be able to make Kane's sword if anything happens. Kael then said, "By the way, he'd been meaning to ask this. Who is that child Kane brought in?" Kane's face went pale. He saved the child from that group of ruffians. He was wondering if Kael could look after him for a while. With Atla involved, he can't exactly trust the government or the guards with him. Kael nodded. "No problem. He'll take care of him and find his parents." Kane thanked him, preparing to leave, but Kael stopped him. "Wait," Kael said. "It's about the box with the mistletoe branches." When he opened the box, he found a secret compartment. Inside was a rolled paper, which seemed to be a letter. It's probably a letter from Fluklid, Kane's grandfather. Kane was surprised. He hadn't expected that to be in there. "Thank you," he said, taking the letter from Kael. As Kane was leaving, he told Kael, he'll contact him when he finds a data chip reader. Kael responded, all right. Then Kane left. Meanwhile, back at the resting Roan, the princess and the Neriel inspected the room of dead bodies. So many criminals taken down in such a short time, the princess mused. Who could it be? Who could be powerful enough to face off against Atla? Neriel replied. As far as she knows, there's no one like that in the central continent. The princess wondered, could it be someone on their side? Neriel shook her head. Who knows? But one thing is for certain, the person who did this to the criminals is highly capable. Even if they are on their side, she don't think that's something to celebrate. The princess agreed. That's true. It feels like the person went a little too far. They might be someone impossible to talk to, looking at the way the body was decapitated. It felt like she'd seen this method of killing before. With a glee in her eyes, Neriel said, at least they now know there are others out there hostile toward the Atla organization. The princess nodded. It would be nice if more people like that were out there, fighting against Atla. She paused. Well, whatever the case, she'd like to meet the person who did this at least once. Neriel bowed and said she'll investigate the person. In another scene, Kane went through the letter from his grandfather in a motel. It read, "If he's reading this letter right now, then that means he must have gone to the central continent and met Kyle. He probably would have received a branch of mistletoe and then asked for a sword. Afterward, he should have met the priestess who can see faith." As Kane read, he muttered to himself, although those were all coincidences, how could his grandfather have predicted all that? The letter continued, "Then he must have clashed with the Artla organization at Barakal. If everything has gone according to plan, then Kane will lose his life to Artla." Kane frowned. Lose my life to Artla? In the next scene, Kane woke up early in the morning. As he walked tirelessly with no emotion, he said that if only he had mana, he wouldn't be this tired. People who use mana don't need to sleep for long since mana energizes the body and brain, helping them recover from fatigue. But first he needs to do what he came here for. He walked to a store and asked the owner if they had the TK series. The man replied, "No, that was released years ago. There's no way they have it." Kane left and went to another store. It was the only one left he hadn't checked for what he was looking for. As he entered, he thought to himself, it would be nice if they have what he need. Some unknown time later, the princess and her bodyguard entered the same store. They greeted the store owner and told him they were looking for something. "What are you looking for?" the store owner asked. The princess replied, "She's looking for an old tablet device, something that starts with TK." The man smiled. "Does she mean the TKXD too? It's been getting popular lately. A young man came in a while ago asking for it too." The princess was shocked. "A young man asked for it too?" The store owner nodded. "He sold his last one to him." Neriel whispered to the princess, "There's no way an ordinary person would buy such an old device." The princess speculated, "It must be the Artla organization that wants it." Neriel agreed. "Yes, they should try tracking the buyer." The princess turned to the store owner and said she really want to see the actual TK32XD2. "Can he describe who bought the last one?" After obtaining the TK device, Kane inserted the data chip into it and was stunned by what he discovered. The data contained detailed plans for battle supplies and acquisitions. The Atla organization intended to gather all weapons stored in Ironheart's blacksmith and kidnap Kyle along with his family to ensure continuous mass production of weapons. Even more disturbing was the information about Kyle's residence and the whereabouts of his daughter. Upon seeing this, Kane thought to himself that he must inform Kyle-sama immediately, or it might escalate into a serious issue. Just as he was about to leave, a voice called out to him saying, "Ah, I've finally found you." Turning around, Kane saw the princess. With a warm smile, she remarked, "I knew it. You're the gentleman I met back at the station." She greeted him, adding, "Hello. You still remember me, right?" Kane, however, was caught off guard. He thought to himself, "Isn't this the princess who can see fate? Why is she here of all times?" The princess then said, "Don't he remember her?" Kane replied, "Yes, he remember." With a relieved smile, she said she's glad. She might have broken down in tears right here, assuming Kane said he don't remember her. Our MC stared at her, wondering what's with this girl. But before he could react further, she raised her foot slightly and leaned toward Kane, as though she wanted to kiss him. Looking into his eyes, she remarked, "The more she looks at him, the stranger it feels. Why can't she see his fate, no matter how hard she looks?" Interrupting the moment, Neriel spoke firmly, "Princess, we should focus on the matter at hand." The princess, as though realizing the urgency, turned back to Kane and asked bluntly, "Are you a member of Atla?" Hearing this, Neriel was shocked. Why would she ask such a direct question? Even if he were a member, wouldn't he deny it? Kane, without hesitation, replied, "No, he's not a member of Atla. In fact, he's against them." The princess smiled softly and said, "She knew it. She knew he wasn't a bad person." Suddenly, a voice echoed from nearby, startling everyone. Kane turned to see who it was. Standing there was a man he instantly recognized as a threat. It was Show Python, an executive of Atla. The sight of him caused everyone to tense up. Show Python smirked and said, "Isn't that the princess of the second continent? What a surprise to find her here." Sensing the danger, Neriel stepped forward to shield the princess and warned Python, "Don't come any closer or he won't like what she'll do." Python chuckled and said, "Relax, he won't come any closer. Instead, why don't they tell him why they're here in the central continent?" The group remained silent. Python, unbothered, glanced at a device in his hand and said, "They don't need to answer. Anyone buying the TK device is clearly here to investigate Atla." His eyes narrowed as he scanned them. "But it wasn't the princess who purchased it, was it? It was you." His gaze landed on Kane. Kane showed no reaction, but Python continued, "They deliberately placed it in a second-hand shop to lure out those resisting them. And thanks to that, they've caught a big fish today." Despite this, Python seemed puzzled. "Who is he anyway? Is he with the princess? Or just an ordinary person who stumbled into this mess?" Kane, maintaining his calm, replied that he's just an ordinary person who knows nothing. Python burst into laughter. "Fine, he'll believe that for now. After all, our MC is not a beastman. Suddenly, members of Atla began setting up speakers around the area. Python announced, "Now, they shall all enjoy a little show." With that, he pressed a button, and an eerie sound emitted from the speakers. The sound had a devastating effect. Both the princess and Neriel began to lose strength, collapsing to the ground. Python laughed loud and declared, "That's the power of the anti-beastman weapon." He told them to sleep well. When they wake up, they'll find themselves in an underground prison. Neriel, struggling to stay conscious, whispered, "I'm sorry, princess." She couldn't protect her. Kane stood frozen, powerless to act as he watched them faint. Python turned to Kane, his grin widening. "Now it's your turn." Seeing our MC stand there so blankly makes him seem like an ordinary person, but he couldn't let him go. He told Kane to come quietly, promising to release him if nothing came up in the investigation. Kane smirked. "So, you're taking me to your base?" "Yes," Python replied. "Put on the handcuffs. I don't plan to hurt you. Besides, they captured the princess thanks to him, so he's in a good mood." He held up the handcuffs. "These are flow iron, the strongest metal in the world. They suppress special powers like mana, and their cost exceeds that of a mansion." Kane grinned. "Fine, he'll follow him to their base." Sometime later, Neriel woke up in a cold prison cell, her hands and feet shackled. She shivered and looked around. "Where am I?" she muttered. Realizing the princess was gone, she screamed, "Princess, where are you?" Kane, sitting nearby, said calmly, "You're awake. He said that Atla took her master a while ago." Neriel panicked. "No, they might hurt her." Kane told her to relax for now, there are no guards here. Someone called them away. She noticed his shackles and asked if he's against Atla too? Or is he with them? Kane replied, "He's against them. They're after his sword." "Your sword?" she asked. Kane said yes. "It's yet to be made, but it will be one of a kind. He won't let them have it. That's why he'll crush them." Neriel frowned. "Crush them? We're powerless. These shackles suppress mana, and even the Beast King couldn't break them." Kane stood and grinned. "Flow iron is still just metal. It can't restrain him." With a loud crack, he shattered his shackles. Neriel gasped. "How did he do that? This is the strongest iron in the world." Kane walked over. "Stay still. He'll break hers too." And bang, he shattered her shackles with ease. Neriel stared in disbelief. "Is she dreaming? How did he break them?" Kane smirked. "Let's go. They need to save the princess." They took her that way. In another room, Python stood over the princess. "The priestess of fate," he mocked. "Rejoice, princess of the second continent. Thanks to her, he might get promoted." The princess glared at him with disgust. Python chuckled. Such defiance, those eyes. He'd feel like gouging them out for his collection. The princess smirked. "How about she gouge out his eyes instead? He'd enjoy it more." Python grinned. "Sharp tongue, I like that." He brought out a tool and said, "The boss might get mad, but taking one of her eyes should be fine." The princess, though scared, dared him. "Do it. But she'll return this humiliation twice as hard." Python stepped closer, but a loud crash interrupted him. He turned and yelled, "What's going on? I said no one should interfere." Kane appeared, sprinting toward him. With a powerful kick, he sent Python flying. Before Python could recover, Kane delivered another blow, leaving him writhing in pain. Kane turned to the princess and asked if she's okay. She nodded, but said, "These shackles, they can't be broken." Without talking too much, our MC broke her shackles instantly. She stared in shock. "How did he break flow iron?" Kane didn't answer. "Your guard is outside. Go. I have something to settle with Python." Kane asked the princess to wait outside with her guard, explaining that he could not let anyone see what he was about to do. The princess complied and stepped outside. Upon seeing the princess, Neriel smiled warmly and hugged her, expressing relief that she was safe. However, their brief moment of peace was shattered by piercing screams coming from the room. It was Python's voice, pleading with Kane to stop. The sound reverberated through the building, leaving everyone outside tense with unease. The princess told Neriel that Kane mentioned conducting an interrogation, but she found it unsettling. For Kane to make an executive of Atla scream in such agony, it was almost incomprehensible. Neriel added that Kane had even destroyed the flow iron handcuffs earlier. She began to question who Kane truly was, and what his ultimate goal might be. Moments later, Kane emerged from the room, apologizing for making them wait, and urging them to leave. "It's dangerous here," he said firmly. The princess, unable to contain her curiosity, asked about Python's fate. "What did you do to him?" she asked. Kane responded bluntly, "He's dead." Despite Kane's warning, Neriel insisted on confirming it with her own eyes. Kane tried to dissuade her, warning that she would regret it, but her determination drove her forward. When she entered the room, she was confronted with a horrifying sight. Python's body had been mangled beyond recognition. His organs and eyeballs were severed, and his form was crushed in ways that defied belief. Overcome with shock, Neriel vomited at the gruesome scene. She couldn't help but wonder how Cain had managed such destruction in so little time. In the next scene, Cain revealed that he had extracted critical information from Python. Using this knowledge, they located the Atla branch's base. The structure loomed ominously in the fog. No wonder it was hard to find, Cain remarked. They've set up their base in a place like this. Once inside, Cain pointed to a blueprint. It contained details about a device that had neutralized Neriel and Kyle during their previous encounter. Both of them stared in shock as Cain explained the device's function. It targeted beastmen specifically, disrupting their blood flow, which was vital for enhancing their bodies through mana. The device was deadly, rendering beastmen powerless. Kyle, stunned by the revelation, said, "No wonder Python's attacks left them so helpless." Cain admitted he couldn't fully grasp the device's principles, but he understood its devastating effects. Neriel trembled as she looked at the blueprint, and declared that beastmen should avoid using blood flow techniques for a while. They both bowed and thanked Cain for obtaining such vital information. Cain, however, dismissed their gratitude, saying, "Don't worry about it, I have my own goals." Cain then shifted the discussion to Atla's objectives. He explained that their ultimate aim was the collapse of the central continent. By doing so, they could destabilize the peace agreements between the 4 other continents, eventually plunging the world into chaos. Atla intended to spark intercontinental wars, exhaust military strength, and seize power during the ensuing turmoil. The princess and Neriel were horrified. "Is this what they've been planning all along?" Neriel asked, her voice shaking. Cain clenched his fists in anger, muttering to himself that he now understood the meaning of his grandfather's cryptic warnings. He told them that this was all he could share for now, and that he needed to act independently from here on. The princess protested, saying they hadn't properly thanked him for saving them. She pleaded with Cain to visit their base, but he declined, citing an urgent matter. He explained that Atla might launch an attack on Ironheart soon, and he needed to warn Kyle-sama. As Cain prepared to leave, the princess held his hand and asked, "Can you at least promise to meet me again?" Cain hesitated but eventually agreed. "All right, they should meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. at Sarah's tavern," he said. The princess nodded, promising to be there. As Cain leaped away, Neriel remarked, "This guy has some incredible skills, comparable to even their Beast King." The princess nodded thoughtfully. "Don't she think it's somehow fateful? He's the only one whose fate she cannot see, and he saved her life." She decided then and there to ask our MC for his real name when they met the next day. In the next scene, Cain arrived at Ironheart and knocked on the door. Kyle-sama opened it, surprised to see him so late. "Cain, what brings you here at this hour?" Cain replied, "He've confirmed the contents of the data ship that Dean had." A while later, Cain filled KKL-sama on all the information he had gathered. Kyle-sama couldn't believe what he was hearing. Holding his head in despair, he exclaimed, "Those Atla guys. He can't believe they were plotting all this against him." Cain informed him that Atla's ultimate goal was war. To ensure a steady supply of weapons, they would undoubtedly try to seize Ironheart. Kyle-sama sighed heavily and admitted he did predict this might happen eventually, but he didn't expect it to happen so soon. Cain then suggested that Kyle-sama and his craftsmen should hide somewhere for their safety. However, Kyle-sama sternly replied, "That's impossible. If Atla discovers they're onto their plans, they will launch an attack. No matter where we hide, they'll find us, and because Cain attacked their base, they will now be searching for him desperately. If they suspect Cain is working with Kyle, it'll be over for them." Cain apologized, acknowledging that he had been careless, but Kyle-sama reassured him. "Don't worry about it. He must have been anxious because of the mistletoe branch. He should focus on his own goal instead." Kyle promised to make the sword for him. However, Cain interrupted. "What's the issue, Kyle-sama?" Kyle-sama asked if he knows about the Sertretan substance. "It's a special metal from the second continent, and it's essential to neutralize the unique properties of the mistletoe branch. Without it, he can't complete the sword, but obtaining it is extremely difficult." Cain thought for a moment and then said, "If that's all is needed, he might know someone who can help." In the next scene, Cain met the princess at a cafe, as planned. As she sipped her tea, she was startled when Cain abruptly asked about the Sertretan metal. "Why does he need it all of a sudden?" she asked, curious. Cain explained, "It's for something important. Can she get it as soon as possible?" It became clear that Neriel's sword was made from the substance Cain was searching for. As the princess glanced at the sword, Neriel snapped, "No, she can't give it away." The princess turned to Neriel, her smile sharp and calculating. "Neriel," she said, repeating the name softly, over and over. Eventually, Neriel sighed and reluctantly handed over the sword. "This sword was a gift from the Beast King," Neriel said. "It's as valuable as her life. But fine, take it." Cain graciously thanked her and promised, if they need information about Atla's bases, he'll share what he know. The princess raised an eyebrow. "He actually have intel on the other bases?" Cain nodded. "Yes, and he'll tell them everything. But first, they should focus on forming an alliance." Surprised, the princess asked, An alliance? With them? Cain explained that he'd been acting alone this whole time. To defeat Atla, he need reliable and trustworthy allies. The princess asked if he can really trust them. Cain smiled. He could tell from their aura that they're trustworthy. But in return, if they can't trust him too, then it can't be helped. The princess abruptly stood up and declared, no, they trust him too. And if that means forming an alliance, then so be it. Cain nodded. He don't know how long they'll work together, but he'll rely on them for now. With that, they sealed their alliance. Cain then took his leave, explaining that he needed to deliver the sword to Kyle-sama. Before he left, the princess handed him a map. This is the map of the inn where they'll be staying. Come by later. Then she told him that her name is Shia Velvistrin. In turn, our MC introduced himself simply as Cain before heading out. In the next scene, Cain returned to Kyle-sama and presented the sword made from the seer Tretan substance. Kyle-sama was astonished. This is the Black Wolf sword. How did he get his hands on such a thing? Cain grinned. It wasn't easy, but it's yours now. Kyle-sama promised with this, he'll forge him a divine weapon, something far beyond anything he've wielded before. Later, Cain arrived at the Beastmen's lodgings. To his surprise, their base was located on the main street rather than the outskirts of town. He knocked on the door, and Neriel answered. I didn't expect you to come so soon, she said. Cain replied, the task didn't take long, but more importantly. He paused, sensing a dark aura nearby. His expression hardened. As he approached the source, Cain unsheathed his sword and smiled coldly. This must be the spy that leaked the Beastmen weakness to Atla. The man with the dark aura stepped back nervously. Why are you coming closer? Cain's voice dropped. Don't play dumb, you scumbag. You know what you did. In one swift motion, Cain struck, severing the man's head. The body fell lifelessly to the ground as the other Beastmen yelled in shock. Why did he kill their member? They demanded. Our MC sheathed his sword and replied calmly, sorry for the delayed introduction. His name is Cain, and he'll be staying with them for a while. Please, take care of me. One of the beast women yelled at Cain, calling him a bastard, and launched an attack. Cain parried her assault with ease, sending her flying backward. The rest of the beastmen roared, declaring they wouldn't let him go unpunished. Cain calmly responded, it seems like there's been a misunderstanding. However, the beastmen didn't give him a chance to explain. As they charged at him, Cain skillfully blocked their attacks as if it were a fencing match. His movements were precise and deliberate, and he quickly defeated them all. During the fight, he glanced at Neriel and noticed she had no intention of intervening. He thought to himself that if the priestess who could see fate were present, she would have resolved this misunderstanding with ease. One of the strongest beastmen warriors lunged at Cain with his spear. Cain blocked the attack, causing the blade to shatter. Addressing the warrior, Cain said, the one he killed was a spy, not one of their fellow beastmen. The others, shocked and angered, shouted at him to stop spouting nonsense. They insisted there was no way Jack could have been a spy. Neriel approached Cain and asked, why do you think he was a spy? Cain replied, have they ever heard of the Jeffrey School? It's a school that specializes in body-focused magic. One of their notable creations is this item, he said, pointing to the object on the fallen man's body. It's a body transformation magic tool. Cain removed the item from the corpse, revealing the man's true face. To their shock, the beastmen realized he was a human, not a beastman. That wasn't his true face either. He was using the same magic. The beastmen were stunned, realizing the person they had trusted was never one of them. Cain added, this special magic stone, created by the Jeffrey School, was embedded in his face. It can copy another's unique mana pattern with 100% accuracy. This man was a spy sent by Atla. Now seeing the evidence, Neriel said she understood Cain's actions, but she had two questions. First, how was he able to see through the Jeffrey School's magic when he's just a swordsman? Second, why didn't he inform them that Jack was a spy? Cain replied, he knew everything about the 73 schools of magic on the first continent, including their specialties and weaknesses. Neriel was taken aback. You know everything about all 73 schools? She asked in disbelief. Cain nodded and continued. As for why he didn't tell them earlier, it's because of something his grandfather did when he was younger. He once said that the malice within Cain was immense. To manage it, he twisted Cain's instincts so that his malice would only target evil. Now, whenever he faces evil, his body moves unconsciously to eliminate it. He didn't have time to explain, he simply acted. After resolving the misunderstanding, Neriel decided to take Cain to the princess. As they walked, she told him, next time, please try to explain things before you act. Cain apologized, promising to try to control himself in the future. To thank him for his efforts, Neriel said she would speak to the princess about arranging a reward. Cain then asked, where is the princess right now? Neriel replied that she's praying on the top floor under the full moon. Cain sighed in relief. That's good. He thought she might have gone outside. It's too dangerous out there. Neriel snapped. There's no way she'd let the princess go out alone. Besides, the altar where she's praying is safe. However, a sudden realization struck her. She recalled that Jack and another person had prepared the altar. Fearful for the princess's safety, Neriel sprinted to the altar and slammed the door open. She was relieved to find the princess unharmed. The princess, her eyes blazing with power, looked at Neriel and said, "You've come here. Does that mean the lower floors have been attacked as well?" Neriel replied, "It's a bit more complicated than that. She can't explain everything right now." The princess nodded solemnly. "I see. She made the right decision to stay here. Few would dare to challenge her under the full moon, and even fewer could defeat her. The full moon strengthens her, ensuring her safety." Neriel felt reassured, knowing that the princess was in her strongest state under the full moon. There was no way she would fall to an assassin in such a condition. Neriel asked, "By the way, where is the attacker?" The princess replied calmly, "They have been annihilated. They came out of nowhere, and she ended up using too much force. It's unfortunate. If the attackers had survived, they could have captured them for more information." However, her expression changed as she added, "There seems to be one more attacker left. They've completely erased their presence, but her eyes won't be deceived under the moonlight." Without another word, she sprinted away in an instant, determined to locate the hidden enemy. Neriel yelled, "Wait, princess!" But her voice couldn't stop the princess. Neriel thought to herself that only Cain was capable of completely erasing his presence like that, and Cain was not an enemy. She began running after the princess, realizing that under the full moon, the princess's powers rivaled those of the Beast King in his prime. Even Cain might not escape her detection. Meanwhile, the princess closed in on the attacker and engaged them in combat. After a few strikes, she remarked, "You're stronger than I thought." But then, she stopped, surprised and blushing when she realized it was Cain. He had effortlessly blocked her attack. She quickly apologized, saying, "She's so sorry." She thought he was one of the intruders. Cain replied calmly, "No need to worry, it's fine." As Neriel caught up with him, she stood in disbelief. She can't believe it. The princess's surprise attack was completely blocked by Cain. Even the Beast King couldn't have stopped that easily. Does this mean Cain is stronger than the Beast King? Later, they all sat down to discuss what had transpired. The princess sighed and said, "So Jack was actually a spy. It was because of the Jeffrey School's body transformation magic that she couldn't detect his fate." Cain asked, "Is there any connection between the Jeffrey School's magic and her ability to see fates?" The princess nodded. "Yes, as you know, she can see the fates of others so long as they're visible to her naked eye. That's the only condition. She believes it works by observing their mana. If the target hides their mana, she can't see their fates." Neriel immediately scolded her. "Princess, how could you blab about a national secret so easily? She shouldn't reveal such critical information." The princess waved her off, saying, "Even if it's a secret, is it more important than their lives?" With a sigh, Neriel turned to Cain. "What you've just heard is classified information, not for public knowledge." Before Cain could respond, his aura shifted. His eyes turned red, and anger filled his face. The others noticed his sudden change and stared at him in shock. Cain stood abruptly, saying, "Judging by their reactions, they haven't noticed yet. We're under attack. We've been surrounded." Outside, a group of assassins monitored their every move. Hidden in the shadows about 1.5 kilometers from the beastmen's lodgings, they watched closely. Among them was a man with sharp, rodent-like features, the Rat Man. Using a lens to spy on the lodgings, he muttered, "Why the hell is Jack so late in reporting? What is he doing?" He said that, while they're here struggling, Jack is playing at being a spy. He should stop slacking and get things done. The Rat Man sneered. "When they're done with this job, they should kill Jack. He's useless." Their leader, Rashud, the 12th ranked sacred magic swordsman of the Atla executives, spoke calmly. "There's no need to bother. The transformation magic used on Jack carries significant risks. He should be dead by now." The Rat Man smirked. "Ah, so that's why you sent him. As expected of our boss, always so wise." But Jay, another member of Atla, interrupted sharply. "Shut up, Rat Man. Jack infiltrated the place 30 minutes ago and hasn't reported back. Shouldn't they be worried about that instead?" The Rat Man, as dim-witted as his namesake, confidently claimed that the task was simple, which was why Jack seemed so relaxed. Jay, however, called him foolish, mocking his lack of awareness. Their argument quickly escalated, and they both turned to the commander, asking if they could settle their grudge by killing each other. The commander, with a calm demeanor, allowed them to do as they wished. However, his aura changed abruptly as he warned them with a chilling threat. If anyone dared draw their sword in his presence, he would personally kill them. Startled by the overwhelming killing intent emanating from him, both men froze in fear. They realized they were facing the power of the 12th rank in Atla. The commander turned to Jay, instructing him to inform the others that if there was no contact from their spy within the next minute, they would proceed with the plan. Jay acknowledged the order and left immediately. Meanwhile, the Ratman stretched his body and remarked with excitement, "It seems they're finally starting the attack. This makes his blood boil. Right, Commander?" But as he turned, he was horrified to see the commander's head severed from his body. Panic surged through him as he called out to Jay, urging him to alert everyone that they were under attack. However, his voice faltered when he saw Jay's lifeless body, his head also decapitated. Shaken, the Ratman stammered, "What the hell is going on? Who's attacking them so quickly that they can't even sense them?" Emerging from the shadows, Cain revealed himself. He calmly stated that he had sensed bloodlust, but it seemed he was mistaken. The Ratman, gripping his sword, pointed it at Cain and demanded, "Who are you? Did you kill them?" Cain remained silent, which only fueled the Ratman's anger. "When someone asks you a question, you answer," he roared. But in an instant, Cain appeared behind him and coldly said, "A person? Do you really call yourself a person? How about a lump of meat?" Before the Ratman could react, Cain struck him down effortlessly. By morning, Neriel concluded that since their location had been compromised, they had to abandon the base. She ordered the remaining soldiers to dispose of anything that might leak information and take only the essentials. The warriors acknowledged her command, swiftly moving to execute her orders. Shortly after, Cain entered the room and announced his return. Neriel thanked him for his hard work in scouting the assassins and asked if he had recorded the number of enemies and identified their commander's face. Cain, with a blank expression, questioned, "Is the number of enemies in the commander's face that important?" "Of course," Neriel replied. "Knowing the enemy's strength and leadership is critical to preparing for the battles ahead." Cain scratched his head and explained, "He killed them all. None of them had faces left, and he wasn't exactly counting." Neriel was stunned. "You defeated all of them in just a few minutes?" she asked, disbelief clear in her voice. Her gaze then fell upon the unfamiliar sword Cain was carrying. "Where did you get that sword?" she inquired. Cain casually replied that he brought it back as a trophy. It belonged to the commander. Neriel's shock deepened. He defeated Rashud, the sacred magic swordsman, and took his sword? Cain, still unaware of the significance, asked, "Sacred magic swordsman? Was that his name?" He admitted that he didn't ask before killing him. Neriel explained that Rashud, the man he had slain, was a renowned executive of Atla. The sword Cain now held, Reishi Biertan, was a legendary blade said to be capable of cutting through anything. Cain admitted. He did notice the sword's mana density was unusually high. "So it's a magic sword?" Neriel, now uncertain, muttered. "You didn't even know who he was?" She was astounded that Cain, a swordsman, had never heard of a name as famous as Rashud's, a name known to every swordsman at least once in their lifetime. However, Cain, with a sigh, explained he had no interest in swords. Neriel recalled how Cain had also been unaware of her Black Wolf sword, further fueling her suspicion that Cain might not truly be a swordsman. Meanwhile, Princess Shia was focused on restoring her powers to re-enter her beast mode. After some time, synchronization was complete, and she apologized for the delay. Cain observed her curiously and wondered aloud if she had gathered all her strength just to return to that state. With a serious expression, Shia thanked Cain for scouting ahead and assured him she would handle the rest of the attackers. She urged him to leave the upcoming battles to her, determined not to burden him further. Cain, however, attempted to explain that he had already dealt with the attackers, but Shia dismissed his words and continued forward. She insisted on taking care of the invaders who had dared to infiltrate their base. When Cain repeated that the attackers had already been defeated, Shia halted, her surprise evident. "So fast?" she asked, astonished. Elsewhere, in a small inn located in Suracacia, the capital of the second continent, a lady approached a man radiating an overwhelming presence. She reported that communication with the sacred magic swordsman had been cut off, likely indicating his defeat. The man, revealed to be Thunder Emperor Van and an executive of Atla, was visibly shocked. How could Rashud be defeated? He questioned, disbelief etched on his face. Van could not comprehend how Rashud, someone with the strength to aim for rank 7, had fallen. He repeated in frustration that there was no way Rashud could lose to the Beast King's royal guard. The lady then speculated that the princess, born with a bloodline stronger than even the current Beast King, might have awakened her latent power in the face of death. If this were true, her strength could have temporarily surpassed Rashud's. Acknowledging the unique survival and combat instincts of beastmen, Van admitted that the awakening of visceral blood could indeed explain the situation. Troubled by this development, he instructed the lady to verify these claims through their intelligence network. Depending on the findings, they would reconsider the Beast King's subjugation plan. The lady assured Van they had a backup plan in place and could proceed with the capture of the princess. Van, impressed, remarked on her resourcefulness. "Very well," he said. "I will leave the clan's operations to you. The princess won't escape this time." The next day, at the edge of Barakal Forest, Cain waited for the group to reunite. He recalled how Princess Xia had suggested they act separately and meet at an agreed spot. Arriving 2 hours earlier than scheduled, Cain decided to use the time for introspection. Though he lacked any mana abilities, he mimicked the meditative practices of mana users, reflecting on his grandfather's teachings. His grandfather had once posed a profound question: which comes first, the body or the mind? Unable to answer, Cain was told to contemplate until he understood. As he meditated, he wondered if today might bring him closer to the answer. Elsewhere in the same forest, Princess Xia and Neriel made their way toward the meeting point. Neriel noticed Xia's exhaustion, remarking that awakening her beast mode twice in one day had taken a toll. However, they soon realized they had been walking in circles. This isn't the first time they've been here, Neriel pointed out. The strange situation unnerved them. Suddenly, they sensed an unusual wave of mana, its intensity creating an odd atmosphere. Could it be a divine object? They wondered. Determined to uncover the source, they rushed toward the mana's origin. Pushing through the dense undergrowth, the sight before them left them stunned. It turned out to be Cain, who sat amidst the forest, mana radiating from his body. The forest creatures surrounded him, drawn to his presence. Upon seeing the scene of animals surrounding Cain, the princess thought to herself that it resembled the famous painting her brother had once shown her, one of the legendary depictions, the peach blossom spring of the celestial realm. She found the sight mesmerizing but was suddenly drawn to another figure. Then she noticed something shifting within Cain. Before she could react, there was a sudden bang. Cain erupted with a powerful change in aura. His eyes turned blood red, his presence radiating a devilish intensity. The princess gasped in awe and muttered, "What is this? Heavenly yet evil sight?" Meanwhile, Cain's consciousness drifted into a transcendent realm. Strangely, it felt as though this was not his first time experiencing such a phenomenon. Since consuming the celestial peach, he could no longer use mana, but during moments of introspection, the mana seemed to temporarily return. Cain pondered this mystery. Was the mana always present during introspection, or did it merely resurface for a fleeting moment? He realized the answer wouldn't come today. As he emerged from his introspection, he became aware of two figures staring at him, Neriel and the princess. Startled, he asked how long they'd been watching. The two looked unnerved but admitted they had only observed for about 5 minutes. Cain was confused. Why hadn't he sensed their presence? Was it because his mind and body detected no danger from them? Or was there something wrong with him? He dismissed the thought and stood up, walking toward the princess. "Good morning," Cain greeted her. But the princess fidgeted nervously, apologizing that she must have seen something strange. Maybe she's still half asleep. Cain pressed her, asking what she meant by strange and what exactly she had seen. About 20 minutes later, the beastmen gathered in the forest for a meeting. They apologized for their delay, explaining they had lost their way. Neriel told them that they are forgiven since the fault was from Cain. Our MC was shocked and asked, how is it his fault? Neriel revealed that Cain's released mana had transformed the forest into a maze. Cain was taken aback. Mana? He didn't recall having any mana. Neriel praised him, marveling at the incredible aura his mana had created. Cain wondered if the natural flow of mana was connected to the celestial peach within him. During introspection, he noted to himself that this was valuable information, bringing him closer to solving his current tasks. However, the princess was still troubled by the image of Cain she had seen earlier. The jet-black darkness that surrounded him lingered in her mind. Was it his destiny? No. She refused to believe that Cain was evil, but if not, then what had she seen? As the meeting concluded, Neriel gave instructions to the beastmen. She assigned roles: communications officers to receive information from their networks, supply officers to transport luggage, and reconnaissance specialists to manage alarms, magic devices, and teleportation spells. Cain commended their capabilities, admitting he had underestimated them before. Neriel informed Cain they would soon return to the second continent for reorganization, though she felt guilty for leaving him after assisting them, but Cain reassured her, saying there would be plenty of opportunities for them to repay his kindness. She mentioned that in 4 days, the royal airship would arrive. If Cain needed anything before then, he should let her know. Just as she finished speaking, Cain noticed a faint lightning spark in Neriel's ear, and realized it was a sound link, a method of transmitting messages without sound. Through the sound link, Neriel received shocking news. She turned to Cain, her expression tense. "It seems Atla has started moving," she said. Cain immediately asked, "Are they coming this way?" "Fortunately, no," Neriel replied. "Atla is causing chaos in the capital's downtown area. In another part of the continent, Atla's organization had launched an invasion. They stormed Kyle-sama's Iron Heart blacksmith workshop, ruthlessly torturing the workers. Kyle-sama confronted them, shouting for them to stop, his voice filled with fury. One of the attackers said they would stop if he signs the contract. Upon seeing this, Kyle-sama was shocked. His fear has come to pass. After invading the Iron Heart workshop, the members of the Atla organization disguised themselves as soldiers from the continent. When customers arrived to buy weapons, the disguised soldiers politely informed them that the shop wasn't open that day. A soldier, smiling warmly, replied that there are some problems that need resolving, and unfortunately, they can't open until they're fixed. They apologized for the inconvenience and kindly asked them to visit another time. The customer nodded, offering a polite response. As they walked away, the customer whispered to themselves, "The rumors about the vigilantes from the central continent being so friendly are true after all." Once the customers were out of sight, the soldier's cheerful expression dropped. He grumbled, "This is such a damn drag. Pretending to be all nice and cozy is exhausting." Before he could say more, another soldier appeared, scolding him in a low voice. "Keep it down. What if someone hears you? If they ruin the reputation their superiors spent years building, they'll all get fired." The first soldier quickly apologized, but their conversation was interrupted by a chilling voice. They spun around in alarm, but no one was there. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of nowhere and struck the first soldier, shattering his neck with a brutal blow. The second soldier barely had time to react before his neck was twisted like a piece of macaroni. From the shadows, Kane stepped forward. He coldly stated, "Thanks to all the information and support they've provided while they were busy gloating, he can handle this matter easily. For that, they have his gratitude." The priestess, standing nearby, calmly replied, "It is our pleasure to be of service." Realizing they were under attack, the remaining soldiers shouted for reinforcements. But before they could move, Kane sprinted toward them, killing one with a swift strike to the neck. The last soldier, terrified, stammered, "What the hell, he's a monster. There's no way we can win." He turned to flee and spotted a woman in purple dress nearby. Desperate, he shouted, "He'll take her hostage. That'll force them to back off." Kane, unfazed, called out, "It's futile. No one outside this area can see or hear you, no matter how much you scream." Before the soldier could act, Kane appeared behind him and twisted his neck without hesitation. Looking up at the roof, Kane addressed the princess who was observing the scene. "He've dealt with all external surveillance. Shall they proceed with the installation of the talisman?" The princess nodded. "Yes. He should maintain the recommended spacing intervals while installing them." Kane replied, "Understood." In an instant he had completed the task. All talismans are installed precisely 92.73 centimeters apart. The princess blinked in disbelief. "What the hell? It's already done? It's only been 2 seconds. How did he install them so fast?" Kane casually explained that he's good at measuring distances. Still baffled, the princess muttered, "This isn't something that can be explained by just having a good sense of distance. Even the Getsubo tribe, known for their precision, couldn't match this speed." She shook her head, but there was no time to dwell on the matter. They're in the middle of a war, after all. After Kane finished, the princess activated a barrier around Iron Heart, isolating everything within the barrier. No one from the outside could see or enter. Kane asked, "How long will the barrier last?" The princess responded that it'll hold for 10 minutes. If that's not enough, she can extend it further. Kane shook his head. 10 minutes is enough. Impressed by the princess's efficiency, Kane thought to himself, on a full moon, the beast men become vanguards capable of overwhelming their enemies with sheer force. On other days, they provide invaluable support through formations and tactics. This alliance is a game changer. He smiled faintly, glancing at her. He then declared, "He'll resolve this within 10 minutes. Inside the Ironheart building, the attackers from the Atla organization continued their brutal torture of the workers. Kyle-sama shouted, "Stop this at once!" The attackers ignored him, laughing cruelly as they burned the workers' heads with fire. "Sign the contract, Kyle-sama. If he don't, they'll keep throwing his workers into the flames, one by one." Another attacker raised a hand and began a countdown. "You've got 5 seconds to decide. 5, F4, 3. Kyle-sama clenched his fists, his gaze unwavering as the countdown continued. After the countdown was finished, Kyle-sama stated firmly that he would sign the papers and asked the man to release them. The man with the huge mustache smirked and said, "Great choice, but there's a problem." He's quite sure he told Kyle to sign the papers before the countdown reached 5. With a chilling grin, he added, "Now, they shall all listen to some heartwarming screams." Without hesitation, the man in blue grabbed a girl and hurled her towards the roaring fire. Her screams pierced the air as the flames got hotter. The man turned to Kyle-sama with a twisted smile and said, "Did you see that? This is what happens when anyone dares to defy Atlas." But in a shocking twist, the burning figure wasn't the girl after all. Somehow, the bodies had been swapped, and it was a member of Atlas who writhed in the fire, screaming for his captain to save him. The flames danced mercilessly, devouring his flesh. Suddenly, Kane appeared out of nowhere. His voice cut through the chaos, calm and chilling. "Do you know that death by burning is the most painful way to die?" he asked. "Every breath you take sears your lungs. It's an ordeal so unbearable that even fainting becomes impossible." The leader froze in shock, staring at Kane as if he were a phantom. Kane's grin turned sinister. Until their very last breath, they'll feel the pain of their cells dying one by one. Doesn't that sound like a good time? Before the leader could react, Cain shoved him into the fire. Enjoy it to the fullest. This is the punishment you deserve. Then, with an ominous smile, Cain looked at the remaining members of Atlas and asked, "Well, who's next?" After the invaders were defeated, the survivors of the Iron Heart regrouped. Mr. KL knelt beside Amy, who was badly burned, apologizing profusely. He's so sorry. This is his fault. But Amy replied that he shouldn't blame himself. It's not his fault. As Mr. KL reached for some ice to soothe her burns, Cain stopped him. "Don't," Cain warned. "Her dermal layer has been exposed to the flames. If he apply ice now, it will worsen her condition. He said there's someone with healing powers waiting outside." Just then, Princess Shia descended from the roof with urgency. She approached Cain and asked, "Is something wrong?" Cain nodded and gestured toward Amy. "Could you heal her? She's barely hanging on." Without hesitation, the princess replied, "Leave it to me." She knelt beside Amy and began channeling her healing magic. Amy, wincing at first, noticed the princess's magic felt different. It must be the healing arts of the second continent. Within moments, Amy's burns began to heal, and her pain subsided entirely. Staring in disbelief, she exclaimed, "It doesn't hurt anymore." Kyle-sama, equally amazed, remarked, "He've seen many healers in his youth, but this level of healing magic is extraordinary. As expected of Lord Cain's companions, they're truly remarkable." Shia blushed at the compliment. He is exaggerating. Her abilities are nothing compared to Cain's. He's far stronger. Just then, Neriel interrupted. "They have only 3 minutes left. They all need to leave this place immediately." Kale-sama nodded and began rallying his workers. "Pack up and prepare to evacuate. He'll explain the details later." One of the workers hesitated. "What about the weapons in storage?" Kyle-sama sighed heavily. "Those weapons can be reforged. Survival is more important." As everyone hurried to prepare, Cain stopped Kale-sama. "Please wait. He have a request." Kale-sama raised an eyebrow. "Oh, he wished to stay because of the sword, don't he?" Meanwhile, the princess extended her barrier using a talisman, adding 5 more minutes to their escape time. Cain expressed his gratitude, still surprised by her precision. Kyle-sama suddenly realized his oversight. "The sword," he exclaimed. "It's in his personal storage beside his room. He should have taken it earlier." Cain mentioned that he had something capable of carrying all the weapons produced at Ironheart. Mr. Kyle, startled, asked, How? How is that possible? How can he carry over thousands of weapons?" Cain smirked and revealed a tiny box. The princess, curious, asked, "What is this?" Cain warned her, "Don't touch it." Suddenly, with a loud bang, the small box sprang open, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The princess gasped in shock and instinctively stepped back. Neriel, ever vigilant, rushed to defend her. Cain quickly apologized. He should have explained earlier. This box is the secret of the labyrinth created by the sin of greed. It's an X-grade ego artifact called Mimic, a living treasure box. The princess, still wide-eyed, asked, "How does he possess the legacy of the devil that faded into the shadows of history?" Cain didn't answer, his expression unreadable. Little did they know that his grandfather was von Flückled, the notorious criminal who stole from all continents and also the king of the first continent. Sometime later, a group from the Atla organization arrived at Ironheart. As they searched the area, the leader shouted, "What the hell happened here? There's not a single person, let alone a weapon." Enraged, he barked orders, "Capture the blacksmiths, their staff and families. These fools dared to make an enemy of Atlas? He'll kill every last one of them, slowly, in front of their families and friends." Meanwhile, the blacksmiths and Lord Kale gathered in a safe location. One of the blacksmiths expressed his gratitude. They heard Atlas didn't just come for them but for their families too. It's a relief they brought them along, otherwise Atlas would have used that against them. Kyle nodded, muttering to himself, "Everything is going according to plan." Still, he's impressed. As expected, the princess and Neriel anticipated the enemy's next move perfectly. Kyle-sama remarked, "They can't stay here. The central continent is no longer safe." The princess, with a calm smile, suggested, "How about coming to the second continent? An exclusive airship for the royalty will arrive in 4 days." Kyle-sama was surprised. "If that's the case, may we accept your offer?" She replied, "Of course. All members of Ironheart will be welcomed with open arms." Kyle-sama bowed deeply. "Thank you. This is all thanks to you. Please accept my gratitude." The princess politely declined a masterpiece crafted by the head blacksmith, calling it too much. Kyle-sama then requested, "If so, may he ask a favor? They need space to complete Cain's sword before leaving. It's made from the sacred branches of the Viscum album and will be named Misteltein." He promised to finish it in 4 days. Later, near an abandoned factory beside Barakal, Kyle-sama began crafting the sword. The princess frowned at their surroundings. She can't believe this rundown factory is the best they could provide for the head blacksmith. It's shameful. Neriel reassured her. She'll protect this place until they can establish a grand workspace for them on the second continent. The princess asked if she has managed to establish contact with their country. Neriel sighed. Not yet. It's difficult avoiding detection while trying to contact the first prince directly. If they let their signals be detected by other terminals, it would be quicker. The princess shook her head. They can't risk it. One of the 13 communication terminals is handled by an Atlas spy. Neriel was shocked. A spy among the 13? But they include the 7 Guardian Knights, 2 of the strongest warriors, and 3 high-ranking officials who have served the Beast King for over 20 years. The princess nodded gravely. That's exactly why they must only contact her brother, the first prince. He's the only one confirmed to be trustworthy. Heir to the throne and respected by all, he's their safest link. Neriel vowed. She'll find a way to contact him without compromising their position. The princess gave a determined smile. Good. But with a serious tone, the princess turned to Neriel and asked, who on earth is Cain? Not only does he know about mimics and an X-grade artifact, but he's also incredibly strong and possesses an unknown skill. Neriel sighed and replied, she don't really know much about him, but she's certain Cain isn't on the evil side. They're actually fortunate to have him with them. Otherwise, taking down the enemies would have been much more tedious. The princess nodded. That's true. There's no way Cain is a villain. Yet inwardly, she couldn't shake a nagging doubt. If he isn't a villain, what was that evil aura possessing him at the time? 4 days later, at the designated meeting point, Cain addressed Neriel. She've worked hard these past 4 days. Those traps she set were helpful. Neriel shook her head modestly. She didn't do anything special. Honestly, she didn't expect the intruders to be caught so easily. Moments later, the rest of the group arrived. They agreed to move forward together. However, the princess turned to Cain and said, it would have been ideal if he could join them on the journey to the second continent, but since he's staying behind, she'll return as soon as she can. Cain smiled faintly. Take your time, he'll manage here. Neriel interjected with confidence. Cain can handle himself. Even if they're late to assist him, he'll resolve the situation on his own. Cain shook his head. No, that would be too troublesome, he'll wait for them to return. Kael Samathan approached Cain and said, he probably know this already, but he can't touch the sword until it's completely ready. The blade he created for Cain needs sufficient mana to transform into the divine sword. If he touches it in its current incomplete state, it will shatter due to his issue with handling metals. Cain nodded. Understood. He won't touch it until it's complete. With a faint smile, Kael acknowledged his promise. Cain thanked him. Even though it's not finished, Kael's craftsmanship has fulfilled a dream. Please take care of yourself when you reach the second continent. A while later, the group arrived at the meeting point, where the royal airship from the second continent approached. Excitement filled the air as they watched it draw closer. Neriel remarked, right on time, just when they needed it. Suddenly, a loud thunderclap echoed. Neriel sensed danger and instinctively pushed the princess aside. From a distance, a voice roared. Just as the Thunder Emperor predicted, they're here. The attackers turns out to be the members of the Atlas organization. The princess and Neriel were stunned. How did they know we'd be here? The only person informed was the second prince, the princess's elder brother. The leader of the attackers sneered and asked if they were the ones who evacuated the Iron Heart blacksmiths. Neither the princess nor the Beast clan responded. Angered by their silence, the leader snapped. Stop ignoring me. He'll get his answers during interrogation. The attackers activated anti-beast equipment designed to weaken beastmen. Neriel recognized it immediately and shouted, that's a blood circulation suppression device. Everyone, stop using your blood circulation techniques, it'll only make things worse. The attackers began their assault. The devices, however, had little effect on the beastmen. The leader was shocked. What the hell? They already know about the equipment. One of the attackers muttered, Captain, can we even win at this rate? The captain snarled, they're just tigers without fangs now. We have the advantage. As the Atlas members prepared to attack, Neriel urged the princess to leave. She'll buy them time, focus on protecting the staff and artisans. But the princess refused. Fall back, Neriel, I'll handle this. She said her talisman formations aren't affected by the suppression device, so it'll be more effective. Upon seeing the princess advancing toward him, the leader of the attackers yelled at his subordinates to stop her immediately, warning that she was dangerous. However, the princess, unfazed, informed him it was too late. With a sharp motion, she hurled the talisman in her hand. As it landed on the ground, it began emitting a blinding light. The scattered fragments conjoined, forming a radiant protection formation in the shape of a dragon. The attackers froze in awe and terror as the formation, known as Jembu, shimmered with overwhelming energy. The leader cursed under his breath, exclaiming, what the hell? How did the princess gain the powers of the 4 gods? The princess offered no explanation. Instead, she stood her ground, declaring, none of them will step foot inside this formation. Meanwhile, Cain stood apart from the battle, staring at his newly acquired sword. He hesitated to touch it, muttering to himself, such temptation, but he can't. How long will it take for this sword to fully form? A month? He can't wait that long. His thoughts shifted to Neriel's sword, the Black Fang, which he had forgotten to return. He need to give it back, he thought, but another dilemma surfaced. If he left now, someone might steal Mistletoe, the sword he had just acquired. Back at the battlefield, the princess maintained the formation, her focus unwavering. The leader of the attackers, now growing desperate, muttered, "If he let them go, his boss will kill him." His frustration grew as the princess airship approached. One of the beastmen in the airship threw down a ladder, telling all of them to quickly climb up. Soon, most of them had boarded the ship, leaving only the princess and Neriel behind. Neriel urged, "Everyone's on the ship, we need to go now." But the princess remained rooted, unable to leave without abandoning the formation. The leader of the attackers sneered mockingly. He knew it. She can't maintain the formation from afar, can she? The moment she move, it's over. The princess clenched her fists, anger flashing in her eyes. He figured out its weakness, she admitted bitterly. But she couldn't bring herself to act. Neriel, noticing her hesitation, pleaded, "Princess, release the formation. She'll take her place and buy enough time to board the ship." The princess turned to Neriel with a sorrowful expression. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'll have to use a trump card." Neriel's eyes widened in shock. "No, anything but that. Please don't use the authority against me." Ignoring the plea, the princess invoked her royal command, an unbreakable vow made by Neriel with her beastly blood, when she became the royal guard of the Beast King. This command, a compulsory order, could not be refused. Tears streamed down Neriel's face as she felt the power take hold. "Forgive me, princess," she whispered, her body moving against her will. "I order you to leave me and escape," the princess said firmly. Neriel's legs moved involuntarily, carrying her away. Despite her struggles, she couldn't resist the command. As she ran, tears blurred her vision. "Princess, don't forgive me for this." The princess, watching her loyal guard retreat, called out, "I've been honored to serve with you, Neriel." With that, Neriel disappeared onto the airship, and it took flight, leaving the princess behind. The leader of the attackers smirked. "What a touching farewell," he sneered. "But don't get too emotional, we'll see each other again soon." He stepped forward. "Now, release the formation and come quietly." The princess was breathing heavily, clearly at her limit. As the leader approached, his confidence grew, until a sword suddenly shot out from nowhere, piercing his skull. Blood sprayed as his lifeless body crumpled to the ground. The princess, on the verge of collapse, was caught mid-fall by Cain. "Rest now," Cain said softly, laying her on the ground. The remaining members of Atla stood frozen, horrified at the swift demise of their leader. Who could take down the captain like that?" one of them stammered. Our MC's gaze turned cold, his fury evident. "Trash like you. Feeling the bonds of comradeship?" He spat. "Disgusting." With a flick of his hand, the attackers were lifted into the air, their screams echoing, and then, with brutal efficiency, Cain ended them all. As Cain continued slaying them, he directed one final question toward the attackers. Why on earth did they even exist? He claimed that no one in the world needed their existence, yet they deluded themselves into thinking their lives held value. With those bitter words, Cain stepped toward the leader and pulled the Black Fang's blade from his own head. Inspecting it, he was relieved to see that the blade was still intact and hadn't shattered. Before he could savor the moment, another member sprang toward him, aiming to strike. Cain sighed, muttering under his breath about their hopelessness. With a single, effortless swipe, he cut the attacker down. The remaining members, shocked by our MC's brutality, collectively decided to attack him all at once. As they approached, Cain sneered, addressing them with icy disdain. The only meaningful way people like them can contribute to this world is by dying as quickly as possible. In a flash, he severed bodies with precision, cutting them apart at their waists and leaving carnage in his wake. Despite their numbers, Cain defeated them. A voice rose from the chaos, a man in blue, rallying the others. "We can take him down with numbers. Kill him," he roared. But minutes later, the battlefield was silent. Cain stood victorious, his blade now shattered in his hand. He examined the remnants with a calm demeanor. As expected of a magic sword, it held up well, 100 swings. Turning his attention to the unconscious princess, Cain carried her away, seeking a safe place where she could regain her strength. "She's in terrible condition." In another scene, the Thunder Emperor stood in his grand hall, lightning crackling around as fury consumed him. Gripping the neck of one of his subordinates, a trembling woman, he snarled, "You failed to capture the princess?" Struggling to speak, the woman stammered, I'm sorry, my lord." The Thunder Emperor released her with a sharp glare. "Explain what happened," her voice trembling. A powerful warrior appeared, That's why they failed. The Thunder Emperor's eyes narrowed. What is she saying? What kind of warrior could defeat all of them so easily? She gestured toward a nearby device, a mana recorder. She said that they always carry these recorders in case of unexpected encounters. It captured the battle. Activating the device, the Thunder Emperor watched the recording in silence. His expression darkened as the footage unfolded. Whoever the warrior was, they struck down Atlas members with precision and speed. Shockingly, the recorder failed to trace the attacker's mana signature at all. The Thunder Emperor's voice wavered slightly as he muttered to himself, "There are only 3 people in this world who could achieve such a feat. The sword god of the 4th continent, Floklid, the supreme king of the 1st continent, and their own leader, the general boss of Atlas organization." Fear crept into his voice as he speculated further. If it was Floklid, if he's gone undercover and appeared here in the central continent, then they're in unimaginable trouble. Floklid is the tyrant of the 1st continent. If he's involved, this is far worse than he thought. Some time later, the princess, after resting, gradually regained consciousness. As she opened her eyes, she took in her unfamiliar surroundings, her fists clenched in anxiety. She wondered if she had been captured by the enemy. With a sigh, she whispered to herself, "Please, Neriel, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault for leaving me behind." The princess worried that once Neriel returned to their homeland and faced the others, she might consider ending her life out of shame for failing her duty. However, the princess hoped deeply that Neriel wouldn't make such a foolish decision. Tears welled up as she began sobbing, apologizing to everyone, her father, her mother, Neriel, and even Cain. Her voice trembled as she repeated her regret over and over. Suddenly, a voice broke through her despair. "Looks like she's awake," the voice said. Startled, the princess looked up, her vision blurry with tears. Standing before her was Cain. The princess blinked, unsure if she was hallucinating. "Am I dreaming?" she muttered, her voice shaky. Cain gently tapped her forehead. "How was your rest?" he asked casually, as though they weren't in a dire situation. His hand lingered on her forehead for a moment, its warmth reassuring. The princess realized it wasn't an illusion. "It's really you," she whispered before breaking into fresh tears. Cain worried. "Does it hurt somewhere?" he asked, pulling out a bottle filled with a glowing liquid. He told her to drink it. She will feel better. The princess gasped. "Isn't that the elixir said to heal any injury and even revive the dead?" The radiance from the potion alone seemed to ease her pain. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I can't take it. It's too precious," she protested. He shouldn't waste it on her. Cain sighed, because he knew the elixir originally belonged to the beastmen. His grandfather entrusted this elixir to him for a time like this. He told Cain to ensure that the priestess drinks it when the moment comes, but if she insists, she should let him know when she needs it. The princess nodded reluctantly, feeling a mixture of gratitude and guilt. She looked at Cain and said softly, "He have saved her once again, even though he have so much to deal with. Thank you." Suddenly, she remembered Cain's sword, Mistletoe, and asked, "What happened to your sword?" Cain smirked and pointed to the mimic nearby. "It's in there." He figured anything inside a mimic wouldn't count as him touching it. He commanded the mimic to show the sword, and its jaws opened to reveal the weapon. A bright light began to emanate from the sword, filling the room. The princess shielded her eyes. "What's going on?" she asked. Cain shook his head. "He don't really know," he admitted, "but it seems like the sword is a little too lively." Back on the airship, KKL Sam looked troubled. His apprentice approached him and asked what has been on his mind. Kyle sighed. He feel like it's his fault. If only the sword didn't need to mature, then Cain wouldn't have stayed in that factory. The apprentice asked, "Is maturing the sword really that difficult?" Kyle nodded. "The process itself isn't complicated. The issue is the sword needs to absorb mana. The more it absorbs, the stronger it becomes. If there were a place where mana was 5 times more concentrated, Mistletoe could become a true divine sword." Meanwhile, back in the cave, the princess watched the glowing sword with curiosity. "Is something wrong with it?" she asked. Cain shrugged. "It feels like the mimic accelerated the process. The mana concentration inside is 10 times the normal level, so the sword is evolving faster." Cain turned to her. "If that's the case, they might be ready to move immediately." The princess looked at him, surprised. "Move? Where?" Cain grinned. "Atlas base. The central continent is practically empty right now. If the executives were here, they would have intervened when the airships were attacked. They're clearly off on another mission." The princess nodded, realizing he had a point. Cain extended his hand to her. "We need to gather information. I'll need your cooperation." First of all, Cain and the princess decided to head to the Atlas surveillance building. At the Atlas base, the escort leader barked orders, demanding that his subordinates find the princess at all costs. He shouted at them to scour the scene and gather every trace of her immediately. Muttering under his breath, he admitted his fear of being executed if he failed to locate her within the next 3 days. Meanwhile, Kane and the princess had already infiltrated the surveillance base. Their success lay in the spell they had cast, blinding all the cameras and ensuring their movements remained undetected. Thanks to this, their progress had been smooth so far. Peering cautiously around a corner, Kane noted the enemy's presence. "They're here," he whispered. As the enemy advanced to attack, Kane unsheathed his sword. His movements were swift and merciless, cutting them down as if he harbored a personal vendetta from a past life. He didn't even allow them the courtesy of introducing themselves before they fell. Amidst the chaos, the escort leader appeared, yelling incomprehensibly about the princess. When his eyes landed on her, he sneered with satisfaction. "I never thought you'd come here on your own," he said. "This time I'll make sure to capture you myself." Before the leader could utter another word, Kane sprinted toward him, with his fist. Just as Kane was about to deliver a killing blow, the princess intervened. "Wait," she called out urgently. "We can still use him to get information." Reluctantly, Kane halted his attack. The princess placed a talisman on the leader's forehead and commanded him to reveal the access code. Under the influence of the talisman, the escort leader subconsciously divulged the code. Kane quickly inputted into the system, and to their relief, it unlocked. Scanning through the information, they uncovered chilling reports about the invasion of the continents. The first continent's invasion progress was listed at 99%. Kane's hands froze as rage surged through him. This was the continent his grandfather, von Flücklid, had unified under and passed down onto Kane's father. To see it fall so quickly, just 14 years after his grandfather's handover, was unbearable. Grinding his teeth, Kane yelled, "I'll kill every last one of those Atla bastards!" Startled by his outburst, the princess broke into a nervous sweat. "Kane, what's wrong?" she asked cautiously. Taking a deep breath, Kane calmed himself. "I'm sorry," he said. He got emotional. He said he's from the first continent, and seeing this makes him angry. The princess said she understands. To think the first continent would fall so far already, it's truly unsettling. She turned her gaze back to the system. "What about the others? Are they in similar situations?" Kane scanned the data. The third continent's invasion is only at 38%. The fourth is at 48%, and the second is at 11%. Luckily, the Vistran royal family on the second continent seems to be holding up. A sigh of relief escaped the princess. "So, it wasn't my brother," she murmured. Kane raised an eyebrow. Was she suspecting the first prince? The princess replied, "Yes. Only 3 people knew about their return to the second continent, Neriel, her elder brother, and her, for Atlas forces to know about it. She thought her brother might have been the one to betray them. Now she's relieved to know that's not the case." Kane frowned. "Don't be so quick to relax. Neriel doesn't know that the first prince isn't a spy. If she's still convinced he's a traitor, she might report him to the Beast King. That could lead to his arrest." The princess paled. "If Neriel informs the Beast King, it'll sow distrust within the royal family. Cracks will appear in the Vistran sanctuary, and Atla will exploit them to conquer the second continent," she said, her voice trembling. "She need to warn her father before Neriel reaches the second continent, but she don't have any way to communicate with him." Kane's expression hardened with resolve. "Then we'll go to the Atlas Central Headquarters in Barakal." The princess stared at him in disbelief. "The Atlas Central Headquarters? That's their largest base. It's crawling with over 1,000 members." Kane nodded firmly. "It's the only way. They'll break through their ranks and secure a communication device before Neriel arrives." Realizing they had no other choice, the princess glanced at the clock. "The airship will reach the second continent in 8 hours. We have no time to waste. Let's hurry, Kane." At the Atlas headquarters in the central continent, the leader roared at the assembled soldiers, calling them fools for failing to locate even a single trace of the missing princess. One of the soldiers hesitantly stepped forward, nervously explaining that half of their personnel were already searching for her. He pleaded for more time, confident they could bring back good news. The leader silenced him with a sharp glare. "Enough excuses. Find the princess within the next few hours. If not, the number 1 of the Atlas organization will descend upon this headquarters. That would spell disaster for all of them." The mention of the organization's top enforcer sent chills through the soldiers. Whispers of fear rippled through the room as they imagined the repercussions of failure. Suddenly, another group of soldiers burst into the room, their expressions urgent. They addressed the leader, asking if he had called for them. The commander frowned, his face darkening with confusion. When did he call them? And why did they leave their guard posts? He never gave that order. One soldier scratched his head, visibly uneasy. "But we heard your voice. You told us intruders had arrived, and ordered us all to the basement immediately." The commander's confusion turned to anger. "What are they talking about? He gave no such order." Before anyone could respond further, Kane stepped out of the shadows, his presence commanding the room. "Ah, that was me," Kane announced, his voice dripping with mockery. He thought it would be efficient to gather all of them in one place, so he could take them out at once. Time is a luxury he don't have. The soldiers froze in shock. The commander demanded, Who the hell are you? Cain tilted his head, his grin widening. Me? I'm the Grim Reaper. Before anyone could react, the room was plunged into darkness. The electricity cut out, leaving the soldiers blind and disoriented. Their panicked shouts filled the air as they struggled to adjust. Through a transmission device, the princesses told Cain that she'd cut off the electricity and activated the sensor as planned. The visual enhancement talisman should be working now. Cain nodded, though she couldn't see him. Good work. Time to finish this. The commander barked orders, trying to rally his men. Don't falter. We outnumber him. But he didn't get to finish. Cain's fist connected with his face, sending him flying across the room. The soldiers panicked, yelling into the darkness as Cain struck again and again, his movements swift and ruthless. Grabbing the commander's fallen sword, Cain admired it. Not bad. Let's see how useful this is. Testing the blade on the soldiers, Cain cut them down with grim precision. One desperate soldier shouted, "Wait, spare us, there's a kid here." Cain's grin turned wicked. A kid, huh? How tragic. Meanwhile, the princess watched the chaos unfold through the talisman's sensors. She had done her part, using auditory hallucination magic to lure the soldiers into the trap Cain had planned. But watching him now, her stomach churned. His ferocity, the pleasure he seemed to take in the slaughter, it reminded her of a past vision. She recalled seeing Cain shrouded in an evil aura, his fate hidden in impenetrable darkness. The memory of that vision unsettled her. Could it be true? Was Cain destined for destruction? Back in the battlefield, Cain's voice broke the silence. "It's too quiet now," he said. "This is getting boring. Let's make a deal. He'll spare the first person to beg for forgiveness." Instantly, the soldiers began shouting their apologies, pleading for their lives. Cain laughed, the sound cold and humorless. He said he was planning to spare the first person, but since they've all begged at once, well, I guess he'll just have to kill everyone. And so he did. Swinging the sword with a twisted sense of joy, he mowed down the soldiers like a predator playing with its prey. When the last enemy fell, Cain stood amidst the carnage, letting out a tired sigh. Relying only on his hearing is exhausting. The talisman didn't help at all. The talisman should have enhanced his senses. He should have been able to see even in the dark. Cain frowned, realizing something. It's not the talisman, it's him. He don't have mana, so it didn't work. As he prepared to leave, the princess stepped into the room, her face serious. Before Cain could speak, she cut him off. She said she don't like wasting time, so she'll ask directly, "Do you feel joy when you kill people?" Cain hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering, "No." But the princess wasn't convinced. Pointing an accusatory finger at him, she declared, "Liar." The princess accused Cain of being a liar, claiming he had purposely given the soldiers hope just to enjoy crushing it. "Didn't you?" she pressed. But Cain shook his head, denying the accusation. "No, this is just a misunderstanding," he replied evenly. Suddenly, a voice interrupted the tense exchange. It was the Thunder Emperor, whose presence radiated an overwhelming power as he yelled, "Princess Xia Ven Vistrin." The princess froze in shock. What? What is the Thunder Emperor doing here? The Thunder Emperor's voice boomed, laced with disdain. "You're bold, marching into Atlas Central Headquarters as if you own the place." He said, "He'll tear them to shreds so thoroughly that they'll never rise again." With a deafening roar, he unleashed a thunderous attack, lightning crackling violently as it hurtled toward them. Cain quickly realized that the Thunder Emperor's target wasn't the princess. It was him. So, Van plans to get rid of him first to capture the princess, huh? Cain mused grimly. The attack exploded where Cain had stood, leaving a smoldering crater in its wake. The princess called out in panic, "Cain!" But there was no reply. The Thunder Emperor sneered. "Don't worry," he said to the princess. "You still have your uses. I won't kill you. Not yet." Just then, Cain emerged from the smoke, unscathed. He brushed off the dust and smirked. "Thunder Emperor, huh? True to your name, your lightning packs a punch. And your attitude? Stormy enough to match." The Thunder Emperor's eyes widened in disbelief. Before he could react, Cain lunged forward, landing a punch that sent the Thunder Emperor flying backward. The sheer force shattered 5 massive pillars, the debris raining down like stone confetti. The princess rushed to Cain's side. "Is it over? Did you defeat him?" she asked breathlessly. Cain shook his head. "Not yet." From the mimic he carried, Cain pulled out a sacred relic, a divine instrument called Soladon Vistrain. Turning to the princess, he said, "Please wear this." The princess gasped. This is a sacred item from the first Beast King. How do you have it?" Cain averted his gaze. "You wouldn't want to know," he muttered. His grandfather stole this relic to purify Cain's true nature. He said that one day, Cain would need to return it to its rightful owner. That day is today. The relic, he explained, had the power to awaken the dormant blood of the Vistran. It could transform the priestess into the strongest Vistran to have ever lived. "They'll explain the details later," Cain said. For now, can he ask a favor? The princess hesitated but nodded. What is it? Cain glanced toward the Thunder Emperor, who was slowly stirring. He will probably be unconscious after defeating him. Can he count on her to protect him? The princess swallowed hard but agreed. All right. Then get out of here as soon as possible, Cain urged. As the princess began to leave, the Thunder Emperor, now awake and seething, roared. You won't escape! He launched a powerful attack, his palm crackling with energy. Cain intercepted the blow with his sword, but the weapon shattered under the force. The princess paused, guilt flashing in her eyes. I'm sorry, she murmured before continuing to flee. The Thunder Emperor snarled, Bastard, brace yourself! Cain, unfazed, smirked. After seeing what rank 8 of the Atla organization is made of, he's not impressed. The Thunder Emperor lunged, fist clad in lightning, aiming a devastating punch at Cain, but Cain blocked it effortlessly. Is that all? Cain taunted. A lightning fist, and it can't even faze me. The Thunder Emperor stumbled back, shock etched across his face. What kind of monster are you? Cain grinned darkly. You don't know how to throw a proper punch, do you? Allow me to teach you. In an instant, Cain struck, his fist slamming into the Thunder Emperor's stomach with earth-shattering force. The impact sent the Thunder Emperor flying, his body crumpling as his spirit seemed to separate from him. Blood sprayed as his organs shattered, leaving a gaping hole in his stomach. Cain stood over the defeated foe, his voice calm and cold. So, did you learn anything about throwing a real punch? Meanwhile, the princess had successfully left the chaotic area. The princess sighed in relief as she reached the control room. However, unease crept into her thoughts. Could she truly wield the divine artifact? If the artifact rejected her, it might spell disaster. Suddenly, a distant noise pulled her from her musings. A group of soldiers approached, their voices echoing down the corridors. One soldier shouted, All security systems are down. He'll head to the control room, the rest of them find the intruder. Steeling herself, the princess placed the divine artifact on her head. There's no time to wonder if it will accept her. She just have to act now. Her father, the Beast King, had once warned her about the artifact's dual nature. It was both a blessing and a curse. If the Chosen One donned it, they would receive unparalleled power. But if not, the artifact would take their life. Doubt gnawed at her. If she's truly the Chosen One, why has she been so weak? She's only strong during the full moon, useless at all other times. Fear gripped her, but she recalled her father's words and Cain's plea for protection. Determined, she resolved to honor her promise to him. With a deep breath, she placed the artifact firmly on her head. In an instant, radiant light burst forth from her body. The divine artifact's power surged through her, an ancient force tied to the legacy of the first Beast King. Her vision sharpened. She could now see through walls and across distances. In one such glance, she realized Van, the Thunder Emperor, was dead, and Cain lay unconscious after the battle. There's no time to waste, she thought. She must eliminate the remaining enemies and protect Cain. The soldiers soon entered the control room. Spotting no one, they spread out to search. Suddenly, the princess leapt from her hiding spot, delivering a deafening blow that instantly killed 2 soldiers. 10 more to go, she murmured, her resolve hardening. Elsewhere, Cain was lost in a dream. This dream was unlike any other, a vision of an alternate dimension. In it, he stood before a vast army, the princess, who was now the Beast King, commanded her soldiers to kill Cain. Cain declared, "This world is rightfully mine. Thieves like you deserve to die." With an evil grin, dark energy emanated from him. Let's see what they can do, shall we? He began cutting through the opposing soldiers with ruthless efficiency. The princess, furious, cried out, "Tyrant King von Euclid, this is where you fall." She charged at him and pierced his chest with her sword. Blood poured from the wound as she demanded, "Why did you wield such strength for evil? Why choose this path?" Cain, defeated, collapsed. The dream ended there, but it left Cain uneasy as he slept. Why does it always end this way? He muttered. What is this dream? A warning or another dimension's reality? As he remained unconscious, the princess stayed by his side, keeping watch. She muttered to herself, Cain's consciousness still hasn't returned. Neriel will arrive on the second continent in 4 hours. And the communication device is broken. Needing air to clear her mind, the princess stepped outside. She looked up at the night sky, surprised to see a half-moon shining above. Why does it feel like a full moon? She wondered. Despite the incomplete moon, she still felt strong. Was the divine artifact altering her blood's awakening? Examining her reflection in a nearby puddle, she noticed her eyes had changed. For the first time, she felt truly powerful. But suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by a voice behind her. Nice weather, isn't it? Startled, the princess turned sharply. What she saw left her in utter disbelief. Looking around, the princess was shocked and stunned by what she found. It turned out to be the rank 1 Atla executive known as Starfish. Starfish said that the scene really brought him back to that day. It reminded him of the battle that lay ahead. The princess was still in shock and asked him why he was here. Starfish explained that he had heard Van, the Thunder Emperor, had died. That was why he came. With anger, he demanded to know where Reinhardt von Flückled was. The princess asked him what he meant. Why would he think that the supreme ruler of the first continent would be here? Starfish responded that because of the extremely regrettable way the Thunder Emperor died, there was no one else who could have killed him other than von Flückled. As far as he knew, only 3 people could kill the Thunder Emperor in such a manner. The first was the Absolute One, the boss of their Atla organization. The sword god of the fourth continent, the supreme ruler of the first continent, Reinhard von Flückled. Starfish revealed that the only one whose whereabouts he was uncertain about was Flückled, so it was certain that he was here. The princess tried to explain that Starfish was mistaken. The person he was looking for was not present, but Starfish wasn't convinced. He accused her of working together with Flückled, and therefore, there was no way she wouldn't know where he was. Did Flückled give her a fake name? Starfish wondered aloud. With a swipe of his finger, he cleared the princess out of the way like a mere tab, telling her to leave, as she was in his way. And he didn't have time to deal with small fry like her. She fell to the ground with a loud bang. Starfish then yelled towards the cave, commanding Flückled to come out. He gestured to the sky, summoning a powerful force that was about to be launched toward the cave where Cain was resting. Today is the day he get his revenge, Starfish declared. The revenge he have longed for 20 years. As he hurled his spear towards the cave, he yelled, "Reinhard Flückled should die!" Seeing this, the princess managed to get up and shouted that she had to stop him. Cain was inside, still asleep, and if this continued, he would die. She sprinted towards him, but Starfish, seeing her approach, warned her again. "Didn't I tell you not to get in the way?" With a quick motion, he launched another spear toward her. She fell to the ground, barely dodging it. She thought to herself that she had barely survived that attack and would have died without the divine artifacts. She tried to get up, but her body wouldn't obey. From the spot where the spear had landed, Starfish summoned it back to him. He sneered at the princess, remarking that she was good, being able to dodge his spear. But he had no interest in her. With that, he aimed his attack directly at the cave where Cain was resting. The spear shattered the old cave walls. The princess froze, startled. She muttered to herself. Cain trusted her. He asked her to protect him, and yet she couldn't do anything. As the cave crumbled, Starfish laughed darkly. Wow, no reaction at all. Someone who was able to kill the Thunder Emperor shouldn't die that easily. The princess, now burning with anger, yelled that she would kill Starfish no matter what it took. With fury in her eyes, she sprinted toward him, determined to stop him. As the aura around her intensified, Starfish took notice. She was stronger than before. He wondered if her anger had awakened something within her, but he couldn't waste time on such mere insects. Without hesitation, he summoned thousands of space, launching spears toward the princess. "Just die already," he shouted as the spears rained down on her. The princess gritted her teeth as she dodged the oncoming spears. She thought to herself, there are so many. It takes all her effort just to dodge them. She kept moving, narrowly avoiding every strike. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she successfully dodged everything. Starfish looked surprised. "Wow," he muttered. "She can survive that, but playtime ends now." With that, Starfish summoned one of his strongest spears, preparing to end the fight. But suddenly, a voice emerged from the rubble. It was Cain. "You've really been getting on my nerves," he said, his voice cold and menacing. With a change in aura, Cain said he's really in a bad mood. He had a long bad dream, so he really needs something to vent out his frustrations. Starfish was taken aback. Wait, he isn't Reinhard Flückled. Starfish realized in shock. Isn't he Flückled's grandson? How is he still alive? Wasn't Cain killed by Flückled 20 years ago? Starfish couldn't believe his eyes. He said, "This is impossible." He wondered if the Shrine Maiden had given them false information. Back then, the lady told Starfish that Cain von Euclid was killed by his own grandfather. But now Cain was alive, and he couldn't believe his eyes. He also recalled that back then Cain was pronounced dead by the Euclid Kingdom in the first continent. But since Cain is here, then that means Reinhardt lied to the Shrine Maiden and his people. He folded his hands in anger and said, So, he thought Reinhardt had been in seclusion due to the guilt of killing his own grandson. But it turned out that he lied to everyone in order to protect Cain. Starfish then said that Cain arrived at the right time. He had just thought of a really effective way to get revenge. He declared that he will chop Cain's head off and present it to Reinhardt. Our MC replied that he's too noisy. Mumbling to himself like that, it was the same as the Thunder Emperor. Cain asked if this is how everyone from Atla loves to yap. Upon hearing this, Starfish was like, so it was Cain who killed the Thunder Emperor Van. Now he will get revenge, making it double revenge. Starfish began using his power, about to launch another spear at our MC. Upon seeing this, the princess said to herself that if this went on, Kane would be in danger. She yelled that he should escape to a safe place immediately, but Kane, with a serious tone, told her, "Thank you so much for protecting me all this time. Now it's time for him to take over the fight, since he have woken up." Upon hearing this, the princess recalled back when Kane was fighting the Thunder Emperor. He also told her that she should leave and that he would take care of it. And now she knew that she would only be a burden if she just stayed. She wondered if she should trust Kane like before and wait for him to do what he could in his power. The princess then told Kane that she would await his return as she moved to a nearby position away from the battlefield. But Starfish had already created thousands of spears and told Kane that he had made the wrong choice. He could never win against him one-on-one. But RMC smiled and said, "The Thunder Emperor Van said something similar. So is Starfish saying he wants to die the same way the Thunder Emperor died?" Starfish yelled and was like, "If you think that's possible, then try me." And he launched his 1,000 spears toward Kane. But in one swipe, Kane shattered the spears mid-air. But as he shattered them, something happened. As his sword came in contact with Starfish's spear, his sword began to melt. Kane was a little bit shocked. It's as if Starfish is trying to absorb his sword by melting it. But as he thought of that, he lost focus, and one of spears stabbed him in his stomach. Kane lost his balance. As Kane fell to the ground maintaining his stance, Starfish laughed out so loud and asked if he could witness this power called Metallic Massacre. Metallic Massacre. It is the ability to destroy metal and absorb it. Anything that is categorized as metal becomes Starfish's power. From the injury Kane suffered from the spear, blood kept coming out, and the bleeding wouldn't stop. Now Kane realized that Starfish's power was also able to affect the metal in his blood as well. Since every living person has iron in their blood, and Starfish can control iron. That was the same reason why Kane's injury could not heal right now. Starfish said that our MC was pretty sharp, although he knew no one could believe that an ability like this existed. He said that this was his ability, an ability he had acquired to kill the tyrant, Reinhard von Fuchlid. Kane said to himself that this guy's power, it's kind of like the side effects of the deep-sea treasure Kane absorbed. The only difference is, instead of disassembling, Starfish is absorbing metal. But our MC dissolves metal, while Starfish absorbs it, such polar opposites. However, considering Kane's speed in disassembling metal, it was impossible for him to disassemble the spear while being attacked. And if that's the case, the only thing he could do was attack Starfish first. In an instant, he appeared behind Starfish and was about to launch an attack. But Starfish told him that it was futile, and with a loud bang, the spears around him turned into thorns, very sharp and deadly thorns. And, as our MC was about to punch him, he quickly stopped the attack mid-air and took some steps backward. Starfish said that his powers could be used for both defense and offense, and any warrior that uses metal could never win against him. Kane, hearing this, knew it was the truth. It was a troublesome ability. Starfish has the ability of that guy in X-Men. But he was sure there was a weakness somewhere, and as he looked around at the objects surrounding Starfish, he noticed a hole in them. Kane smiled and said, "He understand now." He said that Starfish was adjusting the strength of each protective layer by manipulating the metal. Isn't that true? Starfish was shocked, but he said that even if Kane knew about the weakness of his ability, it only took him 0.1 seconds to manipulate it. There was no way Kane could break through it. Our MC was like, "Is that so? Then should he try and see if he would be faster?" He said that he will be faster than 0.1 seconds. And in an instant, Kane began splitting in different directions with the speed of light, looking for the weakness in Starfish's armor. After trying for a while, he finally found the spot, and it was like hitting the jackpot. He clenched his fists with infinite aura, and in an instant, he sprinted towards the objects and smashed through them. His fists shattered the objects and also hit Starfish in the stomach, sending him flying to Yama as he scattered the bricks with his back. As Starfish managed to stand up, he was like, "So, if Kane's sword isn't working, then he would use his fists, huh?" Such a crude way to fight. He commended Kane for such an attack but said it wasn't enough, since his body was the equivalent of metal. He did not take any damage from Kane's blunt attack. Our MC sweated for a while and said to himself that if both his sword and fists wouldn't work, then does it mean that Starfish's weakness is magic? However, Kane was completely out of mana in his current condition and can't use magic. It couldn't be helped. He had to test his new sword out. He thought of Mistletoe, the sword that Kyle-sama had created for him. Although he didn't know if the sword would have matured by now, he decided to test it. So he brought out the mimic carrying the sword, and he commanded the mimic to show him the sword. The mimic opened its mouth, and suddenly, the sword emerged, glowing with aura and energy. Our MC was like, What the hell is going on? He saw the sign on the sword which Kael-sama had told him about. If that sign appeared, it meant the sword was complete. He couldn't believe it. He thought the sword would still be half done by now. But now it was finally ready. The divine sword, Mistletoe, was finally complete. Cain held the sword and pointed it at Starfish. But Starfish, seeing the sword, was like, "What the hell? What is that trash Cain is holding in his hand?" Our MC replied, "This is a secret move I will use to kill you." Starfish burst out in laughter and was like, "So Cain is trying to kill him using something like that?" He said it's pathetic to think a wooden stick is the secret move. He summoned thousands of spears around him and said he would tear Cain into pieces right now, and in an instant he launched all the spears toward him. But Cain said that Starfish would definitely regret it as he began blocking Starfish's spears all around him. And after blocking and destroying the spears midair, Starfish exclaimed in surprise, "What the hell? His silver spears are being destroyed by that wooden sword?" But Cain reminded him that it was too early for him to be surprised, since he planned on slicing off his arms next, and in an instant, with the speed of light, he sprinted towards Starfish and cut off his 2 arms with a loud bang. Starfish was left in shock and was surprised. He yelled, "How is this possible? How can this mere child be able to deal damage to the #1 executive of the Atla organization?" But our MC smiled and asked, "How does it feel to get your arms sliced off by a wooden sword?" As Starfish fell to the ground, he yelled, "Damn it! So this sword Cain is using is magic." He believed that Cain must have signed a spiritual contract in order to use a magic sword, and from that terrifying speed Cain was using to attack, Starfish assumed that Cain must have paid for it with his life force. But Cain replied that he did not know what Starfish had misunderstood, but this was not a magic sword. Upon hearing this, Starfish became angered and was like, "Don't make me laugh. If it's not a magic sword, then what is it?" Starfish yelled that Cain shouldn't make him laugh, and he began reforming his arm that was cut off. He yelled in anger and told Cain that this was the end, he would finish him off. But our MC stood unfazed. He then asked if Starfish knew that he had never fought at his full power, in any battle since he was born. And the reason was that there was no sword that could withstand his power. But since he is now with his newly formed divine sword, this was the first time he could swing his sword at full strength. So he begged Starfish to at least be able to withstand a single swing of his attack. With a loud bang, Cain swung his sword and sliced Starfish in two, and the area exploded with a loud impact. Starfish fell to the ground. As powerful as he was, he couldn't even withstand a single slash of Cain's full power. After that, Cain sighed and said, "So this is how it feels. This is the sensation of swinging a sword at full force." His grandfather once told him that swinging the sword was fun, but he was never able to completely understand what his grandfather meant, until now. Looking around at Starfish's corpse, Cain wondered. He believed that Starfish should have some kind of information on him, since he was the #1 executive of the Atla organization. So he searched Starfish's body, and finally, he found a memory card. As he picked it up, he said that he would analyze the data in it to see if there would be any clues about Atla's plans. But suddenly, his eyes began turning blurry. Everything became wobbly, maybe because he had lost a lot of blood. And that move he used to attack Starfish seriously took a lot of energy. He was still bleeding from his waist, and it had not healed. Meanwhile, the princess came in shock, calling out to Cain. She was surprised to see that he was bleeding. She asked him, "How bad are his wounds?" But our MC was already losing consciousness, and he told the princess, "This is perfect timing. Please take this data chip and safeguard it properly." And suddenly, our MC gave up the ghost as he fell to the ground. But, got you. He didn't die. He was only fainting for a while. The princess was surprised and asked, "Is he fainting? Is he really fainting again? This is the second time now." As Cain fainted, something happened. He began having a dream. This time around, this dream was clearer and more vivid. In the dream, he laughed out so evilly and said, "He have finally broken the balance of the world completely. And what a beautiful world it is." He was like, "Don't you agree, Miss Light that pursues truth? This lady is called Sectina, and also known as the light that pursues the truth. She called Cain a bastard for destroying the world. She hoped to pummel him to death." But Cain was like, "Huh? Does Sectina really think she can kill him, no matter how strong she is?" He yelled in anger and said, "Try me if you can." And with a loud bang, he unleashed his evil aura. He told them to come at him. This is the final battle. They should go all out against him. The 1,000-strong army alongside Serena sprinted towards Cain as they roared with a battle cry in order to attack him. And as Cain collided with all of them, the whole area exploded, like it was a nuclear bomb. In an instant, everyone fell to the ground, with only 2 still breathing. The two of them, Sektina and Kane. The rest of the soldiers died upon impact. Sektina coughed out blood and gritted her teeth in anger. She said, "Why the hell did everyone have to die because of an asshole like Kane?" She yelled, if only she could turn back time, she would have fucking killed him right from the start. Suddenly, Kane woke up abruptly as he gasped. He had a similar dream again. Looking around, he noticed that he was in an inn, and the princess was sleeping a distance from him. He also saw the divine artifact on her head. Kane said, "It seems the artifact has taken root properly. That's good, since the artifact belongs to the princess." Looking in, he noticed that he was not feeling much pain, and saw that the princess had used bandages on his wound. Kane said to himself that he knew he was up against some really strong opponents, but he still couldn't believe he fainted twice in a row like that. And now, that same damn dream again. It was just like the previous dream he had last time, where the princess killed him. But this time around, this recent dream grew even more detailed. He wondered if that was the future that awaited him. If he was fated to destroy the world, no matter what choices he made. If he destroys the world, then how is he supposed to live? Where will he live if he destroys the world? He sighed and wondered, what is wrong with these dreams? Are they dreams of alternate dimensions? Or the dream of his future, or his past life? He was still confused. Suddenly, the princess woke up abruptly, looking at the time. She said, "Oh no, she fell asleep." Kane exclaimed, "Oh, she's finally awake." He asked her if she managed to contact the second continent. The princess replied, "No, she think Atla has made it so none of their communication codes work. It's such a pity, after they've worked so hard to get the communication device." She then asked Kane, what are they going to do now? If they don't have a code to connect to, they won't have any way of contacting allies. Kane said to himself that, even if he used his connections and arranged for an airship right away, they wouldn't make it in time, since it couldn't be helped. He had to use his secret code, which his grandfather gave him. He then told the princess to lend him the communication device, and he began inputting some code into it. The princess was surprised, asking, "What code are you using?" And Kane told her, she'll be able to tell soon enough. Suddenly, the communication device beeped, and a voice on the other end said, "I didn't think you would actually contact me. Aren't you taking me a little too lightly?" The princess recognized that voice. She was like, isn't that her father's voice? How was Kane able to contact her father? But the Beast King on the other end yelled, "Why aren't you saying anything? Answer me, Reinhardt von Flückled. You goddamn thief bastard." The Beast King thought he was talking to Reinhardt, and asked, what the hell was Reinhardt thinking, stealing their divine artifact like that? He said that Reinhardt even left that damn ominous letter, which said, he'll be borrowing the divine artifact for a while and he'll return it later. He also told the Beast King to make sure he took good care of the communication device. The Beast King yelled in anger and told Reinhardt, "Answer me. If you don't answer right this second, then I will be very angry." But suddenly, he heard a voice calling out, "Father." The princess said, "It's me." She asked if her father could hear her. The Beast King was like, "My daughter Shia? Why does she have Reinhardt's communication device?" The princess said she would explain everything to him later, but first, she asked if he was alone, and hoped there was no one around him. The Beast King replied, "Yes, nobody is with him." Shia said, "Thank goodness, they couldn't afford to have anyone listening in on what she was about to tell him." So she explained. She gave him a quick explanation of Atla Organization's plans, and their scheme to raid the 4 continents. And after filling the Beast King in on the information, he sighed and smacked his face in anger. He said, "So, Atla is already on the way to invade my continent. What a useless king I am, not having noticed this beforehand." He told Shia, "Well done, you've done a great job finding such valuable information." But Shia said, no, it wasn't her who found out about Atla's plans. She was about to tell him that it was Kane, but our MC quickly closed her mouth and whispered that she shouldn't say anything. Noticing this, Shia quickly changed the topic and told her father, anyway, her older brother is definitely not the traitor, so he shouldn't imprison him. Her father said, all right, he understands, she shouldn't worry. He then asked her to tell him, how did she get her hands on this communication device? This device is meant to be for Reinhardt, but Kane whispered in her ear and told her, please, just make something up. She should lie if possible. The princess complied, and suddenly, she began making some noise, which made it seem as if the network connection was bad. Then she hung up the call. After that, Kane said to himself that he couldn't tell the Beast King he was Reinhardt's grandson, and that was why he had the communication device, although he believed they managed to trick the Beast King this time. But now, the time had come for him to talk with the princess, not only about the divine artifact but also the truth about his identity. He thought for a moment, then called on the princess and told her to listen carefully. A while later, he filled her in on everything about his identity. After hearing everything, the princess was shocked and exclaimed, "What the hell? So he is the grandson of the supreme ruler, Reinhard von Euclid?" Kane replied, "Yes." The princess was in awe. Now that he mentioned it, Kane actually resembled Reinhard. She did think they looked familiar somehow. The princess then asked, "But why can't she explain that to her father? That he is Reinhard's grandson? It's not like he stole the artifacts. Since he just took it for a while, he's even planning on returning them." Kane said, "No. It's better not to mention it at all. They should just leave it as it is for now." He knew that the Beast King, known for his short temper and eagerness to fight, would definitely try to send Kane to the afterlife, the moment he learned that Kane stole the divine artifacts. Kane then asked the princess, what information did they get from the memory card? The princess replied, "There's plenty of data on it. They can't even see everything right now." After they inserted the data chip into the device, they saw information flooding through it. Kane noticed a familiar figure whom he recognized. That lady. He pointed at her and said, "Isn't she the light that pursues the truth, Sectena?" He recalled that she was another one of the 3 constellations he was strongly connected with. She was also known as the Witch of the Third Continent. But he wondered, why is she on Starfish's data chip? He decided to take a closer look. As he tapped on the data, he saw a lot of information about Sectena, including her date of birth and where she lived. From the details, it was clear that she was highly important. Kane wondered aloud, why would Atla be investigating her activities now? From what he recalled, Sectena's first appearance should be 7 years from now, according to what his grandfather had told him. Sectena was the Lord of the Machine Tower, which she had taken over 10 years ago. Then, Kane swiped to another file and discovered something shocking. It said that Kane was dead. "What the hell?" he muttered. They tagged him as a dead person in the information. He remembered when Starfish had asked him, "Weren't you killed by Reinhard?" The same question repeated in his mind over and over. Now nothing was making sense. Kane muttered to himself, "So, Sectena was the one who told Starfish that he was dead?" He wondered what in the world had happened here. But he didn't have time to obsess over this detail. He decided to copy every piece of information from the data chip. Suddenly, Kane was shocked by what he saw on the device. He discovered that the invasion rate of the third continent was at 0%. The princess, equally surprised, asked, "Does that mean the information they got at the Baraka monitoring station was wrong?" Kane replied, "Yes. He thinks Starfish is more likely to have up-to-date information on the organization." Pointing at a picture, he continued, "It also seems the third continent has recovered all the crucial machinery Atla stole from them. They even reclaimed their ample factory, 3 hours after Atla conquered it." Kane said, he don't believe the third continent even had the time to get much information. But who would be strong enough to have beaten Atla? The princess responded, "That should be practically impossible. Unless the third continent knew the future, knew what would happen, and planned for it." Upon hearing this, Kane wondered, could it be his grandfather? Whatever his grandfather said had always come to pass, and he had always felt that his grandfather knew about the future. But Kane didn't think his grandfather would meddle in something like this. The princess then asked, "What should they do now?" Kane replied, "First, both of them should eliminate the remaining executives of the Atla organization. Then, they'll return to the central continent. After that, they'll move to the other continents for more information." Kane believed that the boss of the Atla organization would return to the central continent once he hears about the death of his executives. The Absolute One. The boss of Atla. Nobody knew who or what the boss of Atla was, not even his name, age, or hometown. But what everyone knows is that they call him the Absolute One, and that he wields a powerful weapon. The princess then asked if Kane stood a chance against the Absolute One. Kane said he doesn't know. He doesn't know for sure until they meet. But he believes he will probably lose if he runs into the boss of the Atla organization. When he was reading the letter his grandfather left for him, the grandfather said that if everything goes as he said, then Kane will be killed by Atla. And if that note is true, then he might die at Atla's hand.